What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Vanguard. We're back for our second stream tonight, and super excited for this one. We're going to be breaking down, reacting live to the Fetterman v. Oz Pennsylvania Senate race debate, which starts in about 15 minutes. So we're just going to do a little bit of pre-gaming, a bit of coverage, get ready, and then come 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, we'll begin watching and reacting live to this debate.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. Obviously, we've been covering the Fetterman-Oz race for a long time. Talk about a roller coaster. For a while, it seemed like Fetterman might actually be able to run away with this thing. The polling certainly showed that over time. But he's suffered a couple of really big setbacks. One being, the fact that he had a major stroke. Clearly did a number on his ability to do things like auditory processing, something that's pretty critical to your debate performance. So I know his whole campaign has been concerned about that. We'll put up a little statement that they put out, kind of telling people to kind of quell their expectations for Fetterman in this performance, which I think is interesting and something that we can get into more later on. But on top of that, we're also going to get into some of the just downright cringe that he's been indulging in as a response to the more and more successful attacks being lobbed by the Oz campaign. And all that. But shout out to you to kick off the live stream. First super chat of the second live stream. Big Cat's Corner. What's going on? Doubleheader of the Vanguard. Let's go. Let's go indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Big Cat's Corner. Really appreciate that. And yes, this is our second show today. We're excited to break down this debate. This is one that's been a long time coming, and this is really going to be the real test of John Fetterman's ability to communicate post-stroke. He's done some interviews, but this will truly be the first big test of his abilities to engage with his opponent in a live scenario. There's going to be closed captioning live on the debate that'll be typed out by someone as Dr. Oz speaks. So as Dr. Oz is speaking and as the moderator is speaking, there'll actually be a live translator essentially doing closed captions for John Fetterman to read and then respond to. And as Zach referenced, he put out a statement, I believe this morning, kind of lowering expectations, saying like, there's going to be some ugly clips going around after this. They're going to try to make me look really bad based on this performance. Because as Zach said, he has some auditory processing issues, probably going to have some, confusion when it comes to words, and the closed captioning process might complicate that as well. So I'm really interested to see how Fetterman holds up. Do you want to read off that statement, Zach? Do you have it?
Yeah.
Individuals. President Biden's a little
So
different.
here, if we just pull up that tab over here real quick, Gavin, I'll read it off. So yeah, this was David Weigel. Pre-debate Fetterman campaign messaging memo anticipates viral videos of him missing some words, etc. Acknowledges that he's never been a great debater. This wasn't an issue in primary where Lamb and Kenyatta knocked him for skipping. Or this was an issue in the primary, rather. And yeah, Fetterman has never been a super strong debater. That is true. But yeah, let's go ahead and read what his campaign has put out. We are prepared for Oz's allies and right-wing media to circulate malicious viral videos after the debate to try and paint John in a negative light because of awkward pauses, missing some words, and mushing other words together. The captioning process may also lead to time delays and errors in exchanges between the moderators and the candidates. In fact, because the captions are going to be typed out by human beings in real time on live TV, some amount of human error in the transcription is inevitable, which may cause temporary miscommunications at times. It is impossible to control and unavoidable. That's okay. What matters is that people get to see and hear John's values. John has had a remarkable recovery, but the ongoing auditory processing challenges are real. The campaign insisted on closed captioning technology because it's necessary, but he'll be open and upfront about those challenges, just like he has been in interviews and at rallies for the past few months. John knows this will not be easy, but he is showing up because Pennsylvania voters deserve to hear from their candidates for the Senate. But remember, John did not get where he is by winning debates or being a polished speaker. He got here because he truly connects with Pennsylvanians. That's how John became the first person to defeat sitting lieutenant governor in a primary in the history of the Commonwealth, and then carried all 67 counties on his way to winning the Democratic Senate nomination by 30 plus points. So all of that being said, Gavin, what stands out to me is they are not projecting confidence. They are not projecting strength. And I think that is John Fetterman's biggest asset. Obviously his hulking size, but what that size says about him as a man and how he is a physical presence that will go and get the job done. Do you think it's a step backward or a miscalculation by the campaign to kind of acquiesce before the debates even happened?
I think they're intentionally trying to lower everyone's expectations. That way, if John Fetterman just does decently, everyone says, wow, John Fetterman killed it. He won this debate. So they're intentionally setting expectations as low as possible in hopes that he just, does okay. He doesn't have to do amazing. He just has to do okay now because the expectations have been thoroughly lowered. And that will, in their eyes, help him again, unless he just totally shits the bed, which is a possibility. Like I said, I'm going to be really interested to see how he holds up in this race. I'm really hoping he does a good job. Obviously, Dr. Oz is no good. And unfortunately, John Fetterman has been I haven't been a huge fan of the way John Fetterman has been conducting his campaign as of late. I thought that the first, couple quarters of the campaign were really well run. He did some really effective attacks on Dr. Oz. It seems now he's kind of more in a defensive position where he's constantly having to try to fight back these talking points about his stroke and about his ability to conduct himself in the Senate. And also he's been responding to a lot of the talking points from the Dr. Oz campaign about him being soft on crime. And I haven't been a huge fan of the way that he's responded to those criticisms either. As you can see here, he's kind of doubling down on this whole fund the police kind of rhetoric, saying stuff like staff shortages at PA police forces are a big problem. We should be supporting new policies like this one being proposed in Pittsburgh that will help make our communities safer. And the article he links to says lowering college requirements for police applicants is sensible. Not a fan of that kind of rhetoric, to be honest. I think he's kind of falling into the right-wing trap that Dr. Oz set for him by saying you're soft on crime. And then John Fetterman turns around and says, no, I'm actually, I love the police and all that stuff. And, to be fair, that might be smart just from a strategic perspective because he is under fire for being soft on crime. But as someone who's pretty firmly anti-police, it's not something that I love to see. Here's another example of that. I'll show you guys real quick. He put out this statement the other day. I'm a Democrat running on my record on crime.
Running the police and working with the community.
I'll put it back to the beginning.
Braddock is a rough town sometimes. I ran for mayor in order to fight against gun violence. Running the police and working with the community, we stopped the killings for 5.5 years as mayor.
So yeah, as you can see there, he's desperately trying to refute the picture that has been painted of him by Dr. Oz and the right wing as a soft on crime candidate by talking about how he's actually in favor of funding the police, not defunding the police, funding the police. So this is definitely an issue for me, again, as someone who's very firmly anti-police. In addition to that, he's also made some pretty problematic statements about Israel that I'm not a fan of, saying that he wants to strengthen our relationship with Israel. So I just wanted to, put that all out there to make sure you guys know that we're not simping for John Fetterman, despite the fact that I think he's clearly the better candidate. This is very unfortunate. And that being said, there's a lot of other issues, for example, unions, cannabis legalization, $15 an hour minimum wage, where he is clearly the superior candidate. So let's not get it twisted. I mean, he is the superior candidate over Dr. Oz. But I have been pretty disappointed to see some of that pro-police and pro-Israel rhetoric coming from his campaign as well.
Yeah, I think the only way you can really analyze Fetterman is the fact that he's the definition of a mixed bag. Gavin and I have always been open about our frustrations with Fetterman and our massive policy disagreements, as well as his just framing and understanding of some key world issues. You mentioned the Israel-Palestine struggle. I think that is an issue that is clear as day. And if I had 5 minutes with John Fetterman, I would probably spend all 5 of them talking to him specifically about that, if not half and half over the policing issue, because I think this is a man that can be reached. But what I think he's done is he's absolutely buckled to the framing that's been set up for him by the more effective attacks from Dr. Oz, right? What are the two most critical outside of the stroke, which he can do nothing about? That was a health issue that there's nothing that he could do to control that. He can only focus on getting healthy from here on out. But the two other attacks on the guy that I think have been landing relatively well from Oz have been about crime, and they've been about inflation, right? And instead of saying, oh, I totally agree, let's have more cops in the most incarcerated country on earth where we already have a fuck ton of cops and we already fund the cops out the asshole and have a militarized police. Instead of doing that, let's talk about the underlying issues for crime, right? Let's talk about lack of resources. Let's talk about income wealth. Let's talk about all trauma. Let's talk about a lack of mental health resources, right? Let's talk about all of those other things that we spend absolutely goose egg on, or maybe 1% if we're lucky of the budget on. And instead, we focus on aggression. We focus on the police. So yeah, that's absolutely unacceptable for him to indulge in that framing. And it's a huge, massive strike against his campaign. We also I remember a good friend of the show, Salem Snow, former candidate in the great state of Pennsylvania as well. He might be a current candidate in the state of Pennsylvania as well. But he also reminded us that John Fetterman once played the role of a vigilante and took a shotgun and took some guy to jail that was John thought was the perpetrator of a crime. That could have gone horribly, horribly wrong. Don't love to see that kind of shit either. So, there's always been that twinge in the back of your mind that maybe he is a little more pro-police than we like. So hearing this kind of thing just really, I don't know, don't love it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Big Cat's Corner, for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate that. That's a great way to support the show if you enjoy our commentary and content. Also, you get to unlock all of the emotes in the chat, which is always a good time. So thank you so much, Big Cat's Corner, for becoming the latest Vanguard member. Really appreciate that. And thank you also, Bruce Stevens, for the $1.99. Bit of an off-topic question, but we don't mind. Thoughts on the Assassin's Creed games? I haven't played any Assassin's Creed games in a long time, probably like a decade. But I do like the concept of them quite a bit. I like the different historical settings and the different kind of moves that the characters can make. Overall, I'm a fan, although I haven't played them in a long, long time. Like I said, do you have any thoughts on the Assassin's Creed games, Gav or Zach?
Yeah, I do, Zach. Thanks, Gavin. Oh yeah, I played the first two on the computer when I was in maybe like 7th grade, like those OG ones. And I remember when I worked at an office, the Valhalla game came out and everybody in Slack was like losing their mind about how good it was. But I'm so unplugged from video game world that my real only memory of the Assassin's Creed game is the whole really retro ones, jump off the building, land in a stack, that kind of deal.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Bruce Stevens, for the $1.99, and keep the questions coming, guys. We'll happily answer any questions you have while we're waiting for this debate to start. Also, shout out to everyone for tuning in so far. Great to see some familiar faces in the chat. What's up? What's up? What's up? Got some mezcal ready. Zach and I got ourselves some Boulevard beers, Kansas City's classic unfiltered wheat. So super excited to crack into a few of these and enjoy the stream. But yeah, it's great to see you in the chat. It's great to see lots of familiar faces and comrades in the chat. ACAB, 100% agree with you, Tyler. So yeah, this is going to be a really interesting debate. Out of all the Senate races going on right now, this one is the most interesting in my opinion. Not just because Pennsylvania is the definition of a swing state at this point, but because it's a really interesting pairing of candidates. John Fetterman is definitely an interesting style of Democrat, despite the fact that he's disappointed me on several issues. He's definitely more of a Bernie-crat in a lot of areas than your average Connor Lamb-esque Democrat. Like I said, he's a staunch advocate for unions. He's a staunch advocate for legalizing cannabis and freeing nonviolent drug offenders. He's a staunch advocate for raising the minimum wage. He's also a staunch advocate for the LGBT community. So there's a lot of good stuff about John Fetterman. Like I said, if it weren't for the Israel comments and if it weren't for the pro-police rhetoric, he'd be a damn near perfect Democrat. So it's really unfortunate that those issues are dragging him down. But like I said, on other really important issues, he is a strong advocate, and I do enjoy his style of delivery as well. We saw earlier in the campaign, especially, that he did a great job just beating Dr. Oz over the head on Twitter, specifically for being an elitist and for being an out-of-state carpetbagger. Of course, Dr. Oz is actually a resident of New Jersey that really just moved to Pennsylvania in order to run for the seat, and using his celebrity and vast amount of money trying to basically buy this Senate race, again, even though he's a carpetbagger from New Jersey. There's a lot to like about Fetterman, and there's basically nothing to like about Dr. Oz. There's been a couple weird stories, including the fact that he is a puppy killer. If we read about those stories of him doing animal experiments, which ended up in the deaths of over 300 dogs. Total insanity. I can't believe that hasn't hurt him more in the polling. But yeah, there's a lot going on here. It does look like the debate is starting, though.
Yeah, super excited. Let's go ahead and play and get some audio going in here.
Privilege.
Insult, stealing the spotlight while voters want a voice on the issues.
I'm thinking about women's rights.
Unity of the people.
I'm looking for civility.
I think public health is most important.
Our leaders are not leaders at all.
Tonight, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz face to face for the first and only time. Both men looking to prove they have what it takes to represent the people of Pennsylvania.
Send Dr. Oz back to New Jersey.
I stand for Pennsylvania values, and I'm proud of it.
Live from the ABC 27 studios in Harrisburg, this is the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate debate.
It's like they're announcing the Super Bowl.
Welcome to Debate Night in America. I'm Leland Vittert from News Nation. The stakes tonight could not be higher, not only for the Keystone State, but for the country. Control of the U.S. Senate for either party runs through Pennsylvania. Dennis Owens, WHTM political reporter and anchor here in Harrisburg, along with Lisa Sylvester from WPXI in Pittsburgh, will moderate tonight's debate. We want to welcome our viewers watching tonight from across the country on News Nation. Voters can watch this debate in all 67 Pennsylvania counties on 9 television stations serving the Commonwealth. Before we get started, let's go over tonight's rules. Mr. Fetterman, Mr. Oz, you will have 60 seconds to answer each question. If there's a follow-up question or rebuttal, you will have up to 30 seconds. Each candidate will also have 90 seconds for a closing statement. When your time is up, you'll hear this bell. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Dennis and Lisa.
I hope they covered
Leland. Good evening, candidates who moments ago just met for the first time. We're happy to have you here. Welcome to our audience watching at home, on air, online, and on News Nation. And we encourage everyone who is watching tonight to share your thoughts on social media. Remember to use the hashtag PA Senate Debate.
And you may notice these large monitors that are behind us. This is part of our closed captioning system. It was requested by John Fetterman to help him process the questions that we are asking him tonight, and approved by both campaigns, and both candidates can see the monitors.
One of the screens will show only the questions being asked tonight. The second screen will caption the questions and responses from Mehmet Oz. We have live, experienced captioners in studio to ensure we are as accurate as possible in what's sure to be a fast-paced program.
And just a note, for those of you using closed captioning at home, the captions you see are not tied to the captions that the candidates will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that, let's get started. Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and 1 term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show. He's done that during his campaign about lying about our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush 2 words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor, a businessman, and television personality, but this is your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions. I want to bring civility balance, all the things that you want to see, because you've been telling it to me on the campaign trail. And by doing that, we can bring us together in a way that has not been done of late. Democrats, Republicans talking to each other. John Fetterman takes everything to an extreme, and those extreme positions hurt us all. Let's take crime as an example, because it's been such a big problem. Maureen Faulkner accompanied me today to the studio. You know that her husband was a police officer in Philadelphia, was brutally murdered. John Fetterman, during this crime wave, has been trying to get as many murderers convicted and sentenced to life in prison out of jail as possible, including people who are similar to the man who murdered her husband. He does it without the rest of the parole board agreeing. He's doing it without the families on board. These radical positions extend beyond crime to wanting to legalize all drugs, to open the border, to raising our taxes. I want Washington to be civil again. You need it to be less radical. John Fetterman, unfortunately, would bring that.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, gentlemen, on to the economy. Pennsylvanians are struggling to put food on the table and gas in their cars. Our Nexstar Emerson College The Hill poll shows the economy and inflation are the biggest concerns for voters. 39% of them listed that as the top issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz, you have blamed President Biden and reckless Democratic spending for the inflation crisis, but voters would like to hear your specific plan to cut spending. Please explain in 60 seconds.
Well, if you ask the U.S. government, they'll tell you they have 4% waste and fraud. Now, I've traveled over the Commonwealth and spoken to countless people. There was a lady in Beaver County at a county fair who told me with fear in her heart that she wanted to provide food for her son's highly nutritious chicken she wanted. She couldn't afford it anymore. That's a big problem. If we've got 4% waste and fraud, we ought to be able to take care of that. John Fetterman's, however, response continually is to raise taxes. He raised taxes as mayor. He tried to raise taxes as a lieutenant governor, 46%. That's a big tax rate. He supported Joe Biden's recent tax rate increase, and he's done that without paying his own taxes 67 times. I'll say that again. He hasn't paid his own taxes 67 times, but he's raising mine and yours. Those are radical positions. They're extreme. They're out of touch with the values of Pennsylvanians. And I can make the difficult decisions, as you do in the operating room as a surgeon. I'll make them cutting our budget as well to make sure we don't have to raise taxes on a population already desperately in pain from the high inflation rate.
Mr. Fetterman, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal. He has specifically said you have not paid your taxes and that you want to raise taxes on Americans. How do you respond?
Absolutely. The Oz rule, of course, he's lying. It was helping two students 17 years ago to help them, buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got her paid. And it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continuing with you, Mr. Fetterman, your opponent has criticized Democratic spending, as you heard. Has the Biden administration overspent? And if so, where do you think spending should be cut? You have 60 seconds.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about inflation, right now, because it's a tax on working families, and Dr. Oz can't possibly understand what that is like. He has 10 gigantic mansions. We must push back against corporate greed. We must make sure that we're also pushing back against price gouging as well, too. We also be able to make more in Pennsylvania and make more in America. When he had a choice to make his merchandise, the Oz label is on, he made it all in China. Who can you believe that can fight against inflation and pushing back against corporate greed, or somebody that is choosing working in China versus over American workers?
All right. I will allow a 15-second rebuttal to his comments that you have been making things in China. Mr. Oz.
I've been trying to talk about policy issues with the people of Pennsylvania. As a doctor, I listen to their ideas and I want to talk about them. When John Fetterman brings up houses, the irony is he didn't pay for his own house. He got it for $1 from his sister. And he hasn't been able to earn a living on his own. He's lived off his parents. So it's not a topic that we should be debating on the stage. We should be talking about crime and inflation, the issues that are hurting Pennsylvanians that they're talking about at their kitchen table.
That's it. He got his Pennsylvania house from his own inlays from $1.
Mr. Fetterman, we have to continue on. We'll continue on with a follow-up question to you, Mr. Oz. This one is just for you. You tweeted in August that you will never stop fighting to lower gas prices for Pennsylvanians. Does that include supporting a suspension of the federal gas tax? You have 30 seconds.
I'm supportive of reducing taxes, but we want to be thoughtful about the long-term game plan to get gas taxes down and frankly all energy prices down. I have gone around the Commonwealth. I've witnessed people say I'm not going on vacation this year because I can't afford to pay to take my trailer to the campground. They can't even get there. What we have to do is ensure that we don't have increased inflation, and the best way to do that is reduce gas prices. John Fetterman has gone after the energy industry, called it a stain on Pennsylvania, and argued we have to ban fracking. That is disconnected from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. We will get to the issue of fracking later on in this discussion, but meantime, turning back to you, Mr. Fetterman, for a follow-up. In an op-ed for the Wilkes-Barre Times Leader, you wrote, quote, "It is time we crack down on the big price gouging corporations that are making record profits while jacking up prices for all of us." How do you plan to do this, sir? You mentioned going after price gouging corporations. How do you plan to do this? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. We have to keep pushing back on that. And he would never make that choice to fight for families here in Pennsylvania. You know, he has never met an oil company that he doesn't swipe right about. You know, he has never been able to stand up for working families all across Pennsylvania. You know, we must push back. Inflation has hurt Americans and Pennsylvania's families, and it has given the oil companies record profits.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
The minimum wage in Pennsylvania and at the national level currently sits at $7.25 an hour and has not been increased since 2009. Each of our neighboring states has raised minimum wages. You see them there on your screen, including New Jersey at $13 an hour and West Virginia at $8.75. But Pennsylvania has not followed suit. The first question is for you, Mr. Fetterman. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at $7.25 an hour. And how can a man, you know, with 10 gigantic mansions, you know, has unwilling to talk about a willing wage for anybody? Imagine a single mom with 2 children, trying to raise with them, realizing making $31,000 a year, you know, $15 an hour. You know, I believe every work has dignity and every paycheck must have dignity in it as well. True. I've always supported a living wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Fetterman. What do you say to small business owners who have told us that if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour, it would put them out of business? You have 30 seconds.
No, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full time, you should be able to live in dignity as well. True. And I believe they haven't have any businesses being you can't have businesses being subsidized by not paying individuals that just simply can't pay to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, turning to you. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with a hotel worker actually here in Harrisburg a few months ago, and he was telling me how hard it was to live on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that. But John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents. He's not really cognizant of the real challenges of business owners who've got to balance that with employees. Thankfully, we have a solution. And John, you didn't answer the question. You can't put businesses out of commission in order to pay more wages, because the wages will go to zero, which is John Fetterman's radical plan if you really follow it to conclusion. Here's what I would do. We have one of the richest energy states in the country. I believe if we could unleash the energy beneath our feet here in Pennsylvania, there'd be plenty of money to go around. We'd have increased wages, a more reason for students to take vocational classes, to be able to learn trades, which I'm strongly supportive of. We'd also be able to pipe that gas, improve our economy, and reduce inflation. That's a plan that works, and it's humble enough that I can say broadly.
Thank you. I want to give you, Mr. Fetterman, a 15-second follow-up to what he just said. about you.
No, again, it's remarkable. He hasn't really had any answer that he actually had about that in his. He doesn't want to talk about having somebody having a living wage and having somebody able to survive again.
And I want to come back to you now, Mr. Oz, for a quick follow-up. What do you say to those Pennsylvanians that he just spoke of that are trying to survive on $7.25 an hour, which is less than all of our neighbors? You have 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't think you should have to survive on $7.25 an hour. I want the minimum wage up as high as it can go. I want to highlight that I have an agenda for prosperity. Unlike John Fetterman, I want us all getting paid a lot more than $15. And I answered your question directly in a way that would preserve business owners, job creators, so they thrive, and we'd have lots more employees entering the workforce and then prospering, getting paid $25, $35, $45 an hour. But we're never going to get there if we don't unleash our energy. And John Fetterman's stubbornness on calling it a stain on Pennsylvania is an insult to those workers.
To be clear, you said you want people making a lot more, but that's not through a federal law of minimum wage. That's through market forces.
Market forces should drive it up anyway, and it's already done that.
Thank you.
You know, you should be able to get paid much more than $15 an hour.
Thank you. Lisa.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Another big issue for voters is abortion. Mr. Oz, we will begin with you. You say that you're pro-life, but you do support abortion exceptions in the cases of rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Aside from those three exceptions, should abortion be banned in America? 60 seconds.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions. As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves. Contrast that with my opponent, John Fetterman, who on this debate stage said that he would demand federally mandated rules for all states they have to follow that would allow abortion at 38 weeks on the delivery table, and he would force it to be subsidized by taxpayers across the country no matter what their personal beliefs are. That's radical. That's extreme. That is out of touch with what the average voter in Pennsylvania believes is appropriate. Now, ironically, John Fetterman's been running ads on this topic, dishonest ads. I need to correct the record. They were so bad, they got pulled off television stations. Even on this station, he was running dishonest ads that I had pulled off. I haven't had a single ad pulled down. My ads tell the truth. John Fetterman's are a fiction of his imagination.
All right. I'm going to let Mr. Fetterman respond specifically about the ads being pulled off the air, and then we will return to you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman.
Yeah. I want to look into the face of every woman in Pennsylvania. You know, if you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice. But if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Roe v. Wade, for me, should be the law. He celebrated when Roe v. Wade went down, and my campaign would fight for Roe v. Wade, and if given the opportunity, to codify it into law.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Going back to you, I want to circle back to something that you said, Mr. Oz. You mentioned the decision to regulate abortion should be something that is left up to the states. Now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has introduced a federal bill to ban abortion after 15 weeks. I know that you've been asked about this question before. If the vote were held today, you were elected senator, you're on the Senate floor, the clerk calls you, there's a roll call vote. Are you a yay or a nay? How would you vote on the Lindsey Graham bill? You have 30 seconds.
Lisa, I don't even need 30 seconds. I'll give you a bigger answer. I am not going to support federal rules that block the ability of states to do what they wish to do. The abortion decision should be left up to states, and specifically when John Fetterman—
You roll with Doug Mastriano.
John, when I'm done, John, you'll have your turn, John.
One moment, Mr. Fetterman. Continue, Mr.
I've been
Oz.
very clear on my desire as a physician not to interfere with how states decide. So when John purposely, knowingly misrepresents that to women, he scares them. He's purposely trying to alarm them, and the fear-mongering isn't working. Running tens of millions of dollars of ads claiming that I'm against all abortions when he knows that's not right, claiming that I'm going to be strict with Pennsylvania when he knows that's not honest. I can't be any clearer that I've been on the stage today. John Fetterman, if you just hear that one story today, I'd be really happy, but I know you're not going to, because you're going to go right back to telling the fables that you believe.
Mr. Oz, I want a 15-second clarification. You are saying that you would leave it up to the states, that the federal government does not have a role here. So are you saying you would not vote for the Lindsey Graham bill?
any bill that violates what I said, which is the federal government interfering with the state rule on abortion, I would vote against. What I feel strongly about is that women in Pennsylvania understand what I'm saying and not believe that someone who's taken an extreme position like John Fetterman represents them, because most women do not believe that we should, at a federal level, codify 38 weeks of permission to have an abortion and have taxpayers pay for it.
So a yes or no on the Lindsey Graham bill?
I think I've answered it very, very clearly 3 times, Lisa.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Oz. Turning to you, Mr. Fetterman, you have frequently stated your belief that abortion should be safe and legal. Do you support any limits on when a woman can have an abortion? Please explain in 60 seconds.
You know, what I support on Roe v. Wade. That was the law of the land for 50 years. He celebrated when it fell down, and I would fight to reestablish on Roe v. Wade. That's what I run on. That's what I believe. And I've always believed that the choice belongs women and their doctors. And he believes that the choice should be with him or Republican legislators all across this nation.
All right.
I'm sorry, I must correct that. Once again, he's misrepresented what I've said, but he also said something very dishonest. On this debate stage, he said very specifically in his primary debate, when he was still debating, that he would support 38 weeks of mandated rules by the federal government that would prevent any state from blocking it. So that's not Roe versus Wade.
That's not true. I support Roe v. Wade. That's the simple.
John,
Roe
you
v. Wade.
said specifically you would support a federal rule on 38 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important that John at least acknowledge that he's not honest here, because you said the opposite on TV.
Mr. Oz, we must continue on. Mr. Fetterman, turning to you, we have a follow-up question. Would you support allocating federal funds to transport women who live in states where abortion is banned to states where they can get one, and why? 30 seconds.
I would. I would, because I believe abortion rights is a universal right for all women in America. I believe that abortion is health care. And I believe that that is a choice that belongs with each woman and their doctor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's turn to what has become one of the key themes of this race, fitness to serve. For these individual questions, there will be no rebuttals allowed. Mr. Fetterman, we begin with you. You suffered, as you mentioned a moment ago, a stroke 4 days before the May primary. Last week, you released this note from your doctor saying you can work full duty in public office, but you have not released your detailed medical records surrounding your stroke. Mr. Fetterman, will you pledge tonight to release those records in the interest of transparency? You have 60 seconds.
No. To me, for transparency is about showing up. I'm here today to have a debate. I have, speeches in front of 3,000 people in Montgomery County, all across Pennsylvania, big crowds. I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and that's what I believe is appropriate. And now with 2 weeks before the election, I have run a campaign and I've been very transparent about being very open about the fact we're in use captioning. And I believe that, again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe in, they all believe that I'm ready to be served.
Follow up. I didn't hear you say you would release your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my Dr. L believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, you have built a lucrative career around medicine, but you've been criticized even by some fellow physicians for promoting, quote, unproven, ill-advised, and at times potentially dangerous treatments. What is your response to that? You have 60 seconds.
One of the great blessings of traveling around Pennsylvania is you run into people who have watched the show. They thank me very much for giving them life-saving advice on chronic issues like high blood pressure or dealing with their anxiety. The show did very well because it provided high-quality information that empowered people, which was exactly what I want to do when I'm a senator. Give people the power. Let them make decisions for their well-being. Now, John Fetterman's approach to health is a very dangerous one. He believes we should socialize medicine. He embraced this with Bernie Sanders, who he endorsed. The two candidates called themselves the two most progressive people in America. When you have socialized medicine, Dennis, you shut down the ability of people to get access to healthcare. Doctors stop practicing. There are no medications available. The lines get long. It's a disaster, and it puts people at risk. So I don't believe we should allow socialized medicine, the abolition of all private healthcare insurance in America, and radical positions like the ones taken by John Fetterman make him too extreme to serve. If we're going to bring balance to Washington, you got to bring people who understand the ramifications. Even Joe Biden Even Joe Biden called John Fetterman's idea, I'll quote him, preposterous.
Mr. Fetterman, I'm going to let you respond in just a minute, but I have a follow-up for you first, Mr. Oz. Did you or your company make a profit from promoting those products? You have 30 seconds.
I never sold weight loss products as described in those commercials. It's a television show. Like this is a television show. So people can run commercials on the shows, and that's a perfectly appropriate and very transparent process. I ruffled a lot of feathers on my show because I told people the truth, and I'm proud of that. I'll do the exact same thing as a U.S. senator. But there's no way to defend what John Fetterman has done with socialized medicine. That is a radical departure from what we in America have accepted.
I
relationship
must
between
respond to that.
John, you'll have your turn. John, let me finish.
Respond to that.
There must be a relationship between a doctor and a patient, and that's what I would direct patients to do.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he accused you of socialized medicine, supporting socialized medicine. What is your response?
Yeah, again, it's the Oz rule. He's on TV and he's lying. I never supported any of that thing. You know, he keeps talking about Bernie Sanders. You know, 3 years ago, he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, "I love this guy. You know what? Why don't you pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because all you can do is talk about Bernie Sanders, because my truth is that healthcare is a basic fundamental right. And I believe in expanding that. And I believe about fighting for healthcare, the kind of healthcare that saved my life."
Dennis, that was dishonest. He explicitly supported socialized
Mr. Oz,
medicine.
we have a lot of topics to get to. I think we did this. Lisa, you go ahead.
We are going to move on to the next topic, and this has come up earlier, and that is the issue of fracking. Pennsylvania only trails Texas in terms of natural gas production. Both of you have taken shifting positions on the issue of fracking. Mr. Oz, we begin with you. You wrote a column in 2014 calling for no fracking pending health study results. But in a video posted on social media in March, you said, quote, "Natural gas guarantees high-paying skilled jobs right here in Pennsylvania. So back off, Biden. Give us freedom to frack." Mr. Oz, please explain that changing position. 60 seconds.
I've been very consistent. Fracking has been demonstrated. It's a very old technology to be safe. It is a lifeline for this Commonwealth to be able to build wealth, similar to what they've been able to achieve in other states. For that reason, I strongly support fracking, drilling, the piping of that natural gas. In fact, I built a facility even in Philadelphia so we can export it to our allies and help them, the ones that are struggling now in Eastern and Western Europe because of the Ukrainian war. John Fetterman calls fracking a stain on Pennsylvania. He says that he would sign a moratorium to ban its continued use. He's against pipelines. He voted or supported the vote against the Keystone pipeline that ended up shutting it down. He supports Biden's desire to ban fracking on public lands, which are our lands, all of our lands together. This is a extreme position on energy. If we unleashed our energy here in Pennsylvania, it would help everybody. Why John Fetterman is so rigidly stuck on fighting against energy companies is stunning to me, because it's the jobs I want. Tens of thousands of high-paying jobs to help Pennsylvanians.
Thank you, Mr. Oz.
Oz rule.
Mr. Fetterman, 15
I
seconds.
absolutely support fracking. In fact, I live across the street from a steel mill, and they were going to frack to create their own energy in order to make them more competitive. And I support that, living closer to anybody else in Pennsylvania, for fracking to myself. I believe that we need independence with energy, and I believe I've walked that line my entire career. I believe Democrats.
Mr. Fetterman, I do have a specific question, which you can continue on this topic, but you have made two conflicting statements regarding fracking. In a 2018 interview, you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all. I never have." But earlier this month, you told an interviewer, quote, "I support fracking. I support the energy independence that we should have here in the United States." So, Mr. Fetterman, please explain your changing position. 60 seconds.
I've always supported fracking, and I always believe that independence with our energy is critical, and we can't be held, ransom to somebody like Russia. I've always believed that energy independence is critical, and I've always believed that, and I do support fracking. I've never taken any money from their industry, but I support how critical it is that we produce our own energy and create energy independence.
I must correct the record.
Just a second, Mr. Oz. I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all." So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I do support fracking.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman.
I'm sorry, Lisa. There's not just a statement you read. There are multiple pictures of him signing a moratorium.
We have to move on.
But we have to get the fundamentals of the truth out here. John Fetterman over and over again took positions against energy.
We have a lot of topics. You will have a chance to have that in your
closing. One comment then. The energy industry is living in fear of John Fetterman. I want to know why.
Mr. Oz, we want to now turn to public safety. Mr. Fetterman, Republicans have called you dangerously soft on crime. The Pennsylvania State Troopers Association has endorsed Democrat Josh Shapiro for governor. But in this race, it endorsed your Republican opponent, Mr. Oz. What is your response to those endorsements? And what is your response to accusations that you are, quote, dangerously soft on crime? You have 60 seconds.
Now, I believe that I run on my record on crime. You know, I ran to be mayor back in 2005 in order to fight gun violence, and that's exactly what I did. And working with the police and working with our community, I was able to stop gun violence for 5.5 years as mayor. Ever accomplished before or since my time as mayor, because I'm the only person on this stage right now that was successful about pushing back against gun violence and being the community more safe. You know, all he's done is just put a plan up on his website in the last 24 hours. He has no experience. He has never made any attempt to try to address crime during his entire career, except showing up for photo ops here in Philadelphia.
I will give you 15 seconds to respond to that, and then I have a question for you.
The Fraternal Order of Police from Braddock, the small town he represented, endorsed me. They supported me because what he's saying is not true. Violence skyrocketed in Braddock. I mean, the town wasn't in a good shape when John got there. It got worse when he was there. People kept leaving. So, of course, you're going to have, all kinds of aberrations. But, John, the city was dangerous under your leadership, and that's why
I want to turn to you now, Mr. Oz. This past summer, Congress passed the first gun control bill in decades. That would not have happened without the support of the man you are running to replace, Pat Toomey. How would you have voted on that bill? And would you continue Toomey's legacy as being one of the lead Republicans in Congress on pushing for gun reforms? You have 60 seconds.
I have been supported by Pat Toomey. I've enjoyed working with him. I think he's done a wonderful job. There are parts of that bill that I like a lot. For example, I like the fact that there are background checks that are being strengthened now, so we can make sure that people who should not have guns don't get guns. I also like the fact that there was a lot of money invested for mental health, which is an important part of the equation. I've been to Philadelphia. I've done prayer vigils with Black clergy leaders who are desperately trying to save the people in their community. Half the murders in Philadelphia are committed by people under 18. We have got to get mental health services to these people, and it's not happening now. But part of the problem is that we have taken away the ability of police to do their job, and that's on John Fetterman. Because John Fetterman has taken such a harsh position against them. He's undermined them at every level, taken away some of their funding. He's pushed for Krasner, who he admires tremendously, and he's spoken highly of him just this week. He's taken his policies to a new extreme. He's argued that people should be let out of jail without any bail, no matter what they did to get in there. He's argued to release 1/3 of all prisoners. 1/3 of all prisoners out of touch.
Quickly, 15 seconds. Would you have voted for that Pat Toomey supported bill?
I would have tried to improve that bill. There are things that I think most of us appreciate. I wasn't there at the time, so I can't speak to what was possible. But I do know there are parts of that bill that do make sense, and the ones I described should be followed. Let's see how it works out.
Okay, thank you. Lisa.
On to our next issue, and that is illegal immigration. It has been a problem in the United States for decades, but it is now spiking. U.S. Customs and Border Protection just released numbers from fiscal year 2022. They show more than 2.7 million total enforcement actions in the U.S. That is the most ever. Mr. Oz, beginning with you. Republican governors in the South have been sending migrants to Democratic-run cities and states. without a plan or without any coordination. It is certainly gaining a lot of attention, but is it an effective way to deal with the influx of migrants? You have 60 seconds.
Lisa, we have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. But I've been into the parts of Philadelphia and Allentown and Reading where we have large Latino populations. I understand the challenges of the border. My father was an immigrant. My mother were immigrants. I understand what legal immigration offers us, but the completely porous, open nature of our border, which John Fetterman supports, has created a humanitarian crisis with cartels profiting with human trafficking operations. They take the money, they buy narcotics from China and bring that into our country, and it's making every state a border state. Pennsylvania is already a border state because we're top 3 in the country in fentanyl overdoses. Lisa, I can't go anywhere where and giving a big event where I don't meet multiple people who say their personal lives have been destroyed because of fentanyl overdoses. Yet John Fetterman not only wants an open border, not only supports sanctuary cities, but he wants to legalize all hard drugs in America, including narcotics. That is, out of touch with everybody. That radical position was tried in Oregon, which he endorsed, 50% homicide increase rate.
Oh, one moment. I will give a 15-second rebuttal.
Yeah. That is, again, the Oz rule. That is just not true. Here his family's company was levied the largest fine for immigration hiring of immigrant illegals. And I think you should sit this one out about in terms of what a secure border.
All right. We do have a follow-up specifically for you, Mr. Fetterman. Vice President Kamala Harris says the southern border is secure, yet we are seeing an unprecedented number of migrants crossing. Is the border secure? And if not, what would you do to fix what both parties are calling a crisis? You have 60 seconds, Mr. Fetterman.
I believe that a secure border can be compatible with compassion. I believe we need a comprehensive and bipartisan solution for immigration. That's what I believe. I don't ever recall in the Statue of Liberty did they say, take our tired, huddled masses and put them on a bus and use cheap political stunts about them. I believe we have to develop a comprehensive and bipartisan solution to address our issue here for immigration here in our nation.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. On to the
But
next
John's
issue.
not addressing the elephant in the room, fentanyl.
We have to move on to the next issue. We will be circling back on that.
Turning now to foreign policy. Mr. Fetterman, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
I believe is right now is China. I believe China is not our friend, and I believe that we can't be able to push back, and we need to stand against China. And I believe that Dr. Oz has chosen to manufacture all of his merchandise on his name on it in China. Which one of us on this stage is going to stand up against and stand firm against China? And I believe that's our single biggest issue right now, to make sure that we address China and make sure that we know that it's not our friend.
Sounds like
Mr.
Trump.
Oz, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
The fact that our country is not projecting strength. Take, for example, what we're doing with Iran. In order to try to get them to give us a little oil so we can deal with the catastrophe that Russia has caused, we have gone to them and tried to sign a deal that would allow them once again to have the nuclear power to blow up Israel, which they promised they would do. John Fetterman supports that deal. It doesn't make any sense for America to treat our enemies better than our allies. We have to message with our strong voice and the energy we have in our country that we have control over our future. And the best way for America to establish its dominance is to unleash the energy here in Pennsylvania and across the country. By not doing that, not only do we cause all kinds of problems with local jobs and inflation, but we're destroying our ability to remain energy dominant, and we're not able to become allies like we should be for countries like European nations, which are going to struggle with their coldest winter ever. It's the best way to punch Putin back and to teach China a lesson is American energy to reign supreme. And John Fetterman doesn't like American energy, and they are scared of him because they know they can't trust him. He's proven it.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, on to our next issue. In our recent Nexstar poll, a hypothetical rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2024 would be a statistical tie in Pennsylvania. 46% of people said they would vote for former President Trump. 45% for President Biden. Mr. Oz, would you support a Trump 2024 run, and why 60 seconds?
I'll support whoever the Republican Party puts up. And I have reached out across the aisle on my campaign because I want to bring balance to Washington. And I've tried to work with Democrats and Republicans and people in the middle, and people unsure, and people who forgot, and people who got angry with where their party was headed. I want to bring us together to make this country do what it's always been able to do: unify, not divide, and address the problems as a surgeon, because in the OR, that's what I do. I just fix the big problem in front of me. John Fetterman, however, cannot go to Washington and work with the other side because he doesn't even get along with his own side. He criticized Joe Biden for not spending enough money and not sidling up close enough to Bernie Sanders. He says he won't work with Joe Manchin. He said, if you like Joe Manchin, don't vote for me. So if you're picking fight with your own party, you're not going to be able to reach across the aisle to the other side. His extreme positions have made him untenable for Republican lawmakers. We need to send someone to Washington who understands the importance of balance, sensible decision-making, and a common sense approach to the challenges that we all face. That's not John Fetterman.
Mr. Oz, Donald Trump has supported you. He has endorsed you. Why won't you fully commit to supporting him in 2024?
Oh, I do. I would support Donald Trump if he decided to run for president.
All right.
But this is bigger than one candidate. This is a much bigger story about how we are going to build a bigger tent to let more Americans feel safe.
Are you concerned about the ongoing legal investigations involving the former president? 30 seconds, sir.
I haven't followed them very carefully. I've been campaigning pretty aggressively. They'll work themselves out. I have tremendous confidence in the American legal system, and I believe law and order will reign supreme. But speaking about that topic, there's one person on this stage who's broken the law, we believe. John Fetterman took a shotgun, chased an unarmed African-American man, and put the gun, apparently, according to that man, to his chest. John, you weren't pulled over by the police. They let you go. You were the mayor at the time. Why haven't you apologized to that unarmed, innocent black man who you put a shotgun to his chest?
All right. We will allow a 30-second response to that, Mr. Fetterman, specifically what he was saying, referring to the incident in Braddock.
I made the opportunity to defend our community as the chief law enforcement officer there. Everybody in Braddock, an overwhelmingly majority community of black community, all understood what happened. You know, they understood what happened, and everybody agreed that, and nobody believes that it was anything about me making a split-second decision to defend our community as well.
Why not apologize?
Mr. Oz, please. We are still with Mr. Fetterman. Turning to you right now, you support a Biden run. Do you support a Biden run in 2024? Why in 60 seconds?
That's honestly, it's up to his choice whether he, and if he does choose to run, I would absolutely support him. But ultimately, that's ultimately only his choice.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. A follow-up question on this. Our Next Star poll shows 51% of Pennsylvania voters disapprove of the president's job performance. You have publicly supported many of his policy positions. Are there any that you disagree with? 30 seconds.
No, I just believe he needs to do more about supporting and fighting about inflation. And I do believe he can do more about that. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Biden is a good family man, and I believe he stands for the union way of life. And I believe that unemployment is already down to the lowest level in the last 50 years.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Let's turn now, gentlemen, to the issue of Social Security. It is only fully funded through 2034. Many Americans are worried that they will never receive their full benefit or have to accept cuts to their benefits. Mr. Fetterman, how are you going to make sure it is there for them? You have 60 seconds.
We need to make sure that Dr. Oz and the Republicans believe in cutting Medicare and Social Security. I believe that they have to support and expand Social Security. And if somebody send me to Washington, D.C., I would support and stand and to support Social Security.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oz. Same question to you. How are you going to make sure that Social Security is available for future Americans? You have 60 seconds.
We made a deal with the wonderful seniors of our nation. They worked their hearts out. They paid into a program. No one's going to touch it on my watch except to make sure that it's stronger than it is right now. Social Security, Medicare, which I know a lot about as a doctor, are the fundamental element of security for our seniors, and they deserve to feel like they're valued by our nation. John Fetterman, again, has been running ads and saying that I'm against those with no proof. I've never said anything different than what I'm saying to you on this stage. But in an effort to fearmonger with people who are older and can be taken advantage of, he'll run these ads. John, it's reprehensible, but it's also reflective of your approach to doing these things. You haven't shown up on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from voters, not once on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from media once on the campaign trail, even just to show off that you could do it. And this is the only debate I could get you to come to talk to me on. And I had to beg on my knees to get you to come. And if it wasn't for Dennis probably getting involved, I don't think it would have happened. Seniors need to know more about your radical left positions, and I need to be able to tell them about my positions. That's what democracy is built on. We exchange ideas, the voters decide. You have hidden from them.
Mr. Oz, I'm going to let you have 15 seconds in a moment, Mr. Fetterman, but can you give us a specific example of what you would do to protect Social Security?
Well, for one, we have to make sure that it adequately increases with the higher inflation rates that we have. So we've got to make that 4% of wasted money that right now is in the budget redirected appropriately. And one of the first places that I would use it is Social Security and Medicare. And here's the reason. One of the worst things we can do to a people is give them bad quality care. And so if you have if you have people who are not going to see a doctor, for example, because they can't afford it, they'll get sicker. Bad medicine means more cost. No one benefits.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he said a few things a moment ago. I want to give you 15 seconds to respond to those.
Now, again, I can't just say one thing other than that Dr. Oz would not support, and he would support cutting Medicare. And that's
John, why do you say that? I've never said that.
It's absolutely a fact. It's a fact. You would have voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which has dropped our prescription drugs, and he doesn't believe.
Okay, gentlemen, we need to move on. Lisa.
All right, we are moving on to the topic of education. The cost of college tuition is now out of reach for many, many families. Our question is for both of you. We start with Mr. Oz. What is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term? You have 1 minute, Mr. Oz.
I've worked in academic medical centers my whole life, so I'm in higher education. And I can tell you the reason the prices have gone up sixfold in the last 40 years is not because the education quality is better. We've added extra layers of middle level individuals who don't actually improve the quality education, in my opinion. There's a lot of expenses now incurred by these institutions, and it's not right for the American people to be stuck with the bill. I would push them to offer more electronic classes. Half the kids don't live on campus anyway. John Fetterman's approach, however, is not to deal with the unnecessarily high costs, but just to pay it. So if you want to pay students who didn't pay their loans back, basically what John Fetterman and Joe Biden are arguing for is for plumbers who didn't go to college and couldn't, for a bunch of reasons, afford it, to pay the bills of lawyers who went to graduate school and haven't paid their debt back. I don't think that's right for the American people. We want a fair system. Drop the cost down by pushing for more value for the money we're spending, and then ensure there's a high quality education that lets people make a living when they graduate.
All right, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal specifically on the issue of student loan debt, which Mr. Oz was referring to. Mr. Fetterman.
Again, Dr. Oz, loves free money when it's a $500,000 tax break on one of his, homes down in a ranch in Florida. And whether it was a $50 tax break, about his farm in Montgomery County. So it's about supporting and helping, young earners, young students to give them a break. I believe that supporting.
All right, let me just ask specifically with the plan to ease student loan debt, the debt forgiveness of $10,000, $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Do you support that position?
I do absolutely support that. I believe, like I said, it's about helping young learners, be able to get a better start, getting off in the start of their life. And I do believe that. And I believe a majority of Americans support that as well, too, helping young learners.
All right, Mr. Fetterman, I want to ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Oz. And what is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't answer. He didn't answer the question whatsoever.
I did answer the question.
I believe,
Mr. Oz, please give him a moment.
You didn't. I fundamentally believe that every quality public university education should be very affordable in every state. And I think that needs to be a significant investment, to make sure that anyone be able to afford to go to get a 4-degree university degree, say at Penn State or at Pitt or any state schools to make it much more affordable. And that means acquiring a significant investment to make sure and create it affordable that every family can afford.
How exactly, Mr. Fetterman, do you propose doing that to make it more affordable for families?
No, I just making it that much more. It costs too much, and I believe providing the resources to reduce the tuition to allow families to be able to afford it.
All right, we have a follow-up question. This one now is for both of you. This is from News Nation viewer Ann Andrews, a registered nurse from Conneautville near Erie. Ann is a vocational educational instructor for a university and a practicing registered nurse.
If you were elected, could you please tell me what you would be doing for vocational education in the state of Pennsylvania as well as our nation?
So, Mr. Oz, if elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
I've visited vocational schools. I have an answer, but John, because obviously I wasn't clear enough for you to understand this. There's no question that cutting out the middle levels of higher education and providing digital programs would reduce the cost of education. It's a concrete set of ideas that I'd like to move on. With regard to vocational education, this is really important for us to allow our trade unions to get more closely linked with the vocational schools. I was at a vocational school in Westmoreland, and they have about 1,000 kids. They could take 2,000 kids. Funding those programs is the smartest way to invest our tax dollars. We'll turn out twice as many children who have a job as soon as they graduate. It supports our trade unions who want those kids in their positions anyway. It makes the whole program work.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman, if elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
Again, I think it's just the same the way the university 4 degrees as well too, supporting that and partnering with the unions and making sure that vocation training are is affordable and providing the resources to make sure everyone has the opportunity. Going to college isn't the right choice for every person, but going to those kind of vocational schools, able to create a career to reach a lot of high salary, and again, supporting to reduce those costs are critical too.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Moving now, multiple members of Congress, specifically Democrats, have called for the Supreme Court to be expanded. Candidates, we want to know where you stand on this. Mr. Fetterman, should the Supreme Court be expanded? And if so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I don't believe, I don't stand and I don't believe in that. I fundamentally believe that even though I don't agree with the ideological breakup of the Supreme Court, I believe it's not about changing the rules. It's about acknowledging where we're at, much the way the Republicans want to try to change the Constitution about how our Supreme Court in Pennsylvania is going to be done. And I don't support that. So I think it's critical that we be consistent, and I do not believe in supporting the Supreme Court.
Mr. Oz, same question to you. Should the Supreme Court be expanded? If so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I would never touch the makeup of the Supreme Court, and I would advocate to leave it the exact same size it is. But John Fetterman's radical positions have spilled over into what he would do in Washington. One of the first things he has said, and he came back to the campaign trail, is that he wanted to bust the filibuster, which means removing the brakes on the Senate overreacting. That's
true. That is true.
But if you do that, then you would free up the Democrats in the Senate without getting the normal amount of votes to actually expand the Supreme Court, add more states, do things that are detrimental to the well-being of the country. So I think, and your first day back, arguing that we should get rid of the filibuster is a dangerously radical move that would hurt Washington. It's not in our nation's best interest.
Thank you both very much.
All right. At this time, we are ready for our closing statements. You each have 90 seconds to convince Pennsylvanians to vote for you on Election Day. Mr. Fetterman, you are first. 90 seconds.
Once again, I would just like to say that my campaign is all about fighting for anyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to get back up again. I'm also fighting for any forgotten community all across Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to be made to get back up. I've made my entire career dedicating to those kinds of pursuits. I started as a GED instructor back in Braddock over 20 years ago, because I believe it's about serving Pennsylvania, not about using Pennsylvania for their own end interests as well. To me, careers are revealed by your real underlying values. And my values have always been about fighting for forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, your final thoughts, 90 seconds.
I've loved traveling to the four corners of the beautiful Commonwealth, and I've heard your problems. I'm a surgeon, doctor. I listen to what you say, and I'm trying to help address them today. I've talked to seniors worried their Social Security checks wouldn't go far enough with the raging inflation. I've talked to couples want to make their first down payment on a new house, and they can't afford it anymore because of interest rates. I've talked to families.
You want to cut
petrified.
Social Security.
Mr. Fetterman, it's his turn for his closing.
I've talked to families worried about fentanyl showing up in their mailbox and literally taking the lives of their children who they find blue in bed. I've talked to families who won't let their kids go outside because of the crime wave that's been facilitated by left radical policies like the ones John Fetterman has been advocating for. But here's the deal, right? None of this has to happen. This is all very addressable. I'm a surgeon. I'm not a politician. We take big problems, we focus on them, and we fix them. We do it by uniting, by coming together, not dividing. And by doing that, we can get ahead. But I've got one question to challenge you with, just one question. If you take what I'm saying to heart, ask yourself this and others in your family. Are you unhappy with where America's headed? I am. And if you are as well, then I'm the candidate for change. I'm a living embodiment of the American dream. I believe we're the land of opportunity, the land of plenty. I believe we can balance a budget without recklessly spending. I believe we can have an unleashed energy policy that helps us all. I believe that we can have safe city streets and a secure border so legal immigrants can come across, but you shut the fentanyl out. I believe we can give parents choice in where their kids go to school. We can have affordable health care. But most of all, I believe in you. And if you can do this together, and we can, I would ask for your vote on Election Day. God bless you.
We do have one final question, an important issue in Pennsylvania. The eyes of the state are on this debate tonight, but on Sunday they will be on Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia as the state's two NFL teams go head-to-head. Mr. Fetterman, Steelers or Eagles, and why?
Oh, clearly, always for the Steelers.
Mr. Oz.
I'll be at the game rooting for my Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Gentlemen, thank you both so much. This does conclude our debate. We do want to thank our candidates for being with us, Mr. Fetterman and Mr. Oz, and for all of you at home who have been watching. Thank you so much.
And we want to thank our team at WHTM for hosting us at their studios tonight. Remember, voters, that Election Day is just 2 weeks from today on Tuesday, November 8th. Thanks for being with us and have a great night.
Woo! Holy shit, guys. Everybody, that was the end of the official moderated debate, but stick around. I know there's a lot of you first-time Vanguard listeners. Gavin and I are going to be breaking this whole thing down. We're going to be chatting with you guys, Gavin, with the community. I know there are a lot of first-time listeners here with the Vanguard tonight. I've seen a lot of people with heterodox political views in the comment chat section. You're all welcome here. We're all going to hash out these ideas. But I just want to start the conversation off by saying that did not go as I'd hoped. But Gavin, what's your first initial reaction fresh out the gate?
Yeah, that was pretty rough, guys. That was pretty rough. And, I do just want to say that the main thing I felt throughout the debate was just that I felt really bad for John Fetterman. No one ever should have to recover from a stroke in such a public way. And recovering from a stroke does not mix well with a live televised debate in which you're only given 30 to 60 seconds to respond. And it's all very off the cuff. Again, recovering from a stroke, live debates, it doesn't mix well. So even if you just totally put the policy aside and reverse the roles, and Dr. Oz was the one recovering from the stroke instead of John Fetterman, I would feel just as bad for him. Completely putting the policy aside, it was painful to watch, guys. It was really painful to watch. I felt really bad for John Fetterman, who, I almost wanted to cry a couple times throughout that debate. Again, completely putting the policy aside. No one should have to recover from a stroke this publicly on live television. But that being said, unfortunately, when it came to the substance of that debate, when it came to a lot of John Fetterman's answers, I don't think he was in top form there either. So let's, try to just focus on the substance here. I don't want to ridicule this man who's clearly, like I said, publicly recovering from a stroke, something that hopefully none of us ever have to experience at all, let alone in such a public, scrutinized fashion. So, let's try to focus on the substance here. But the problem is that the substance wasn't great either. I don't think that a lot of his answers were very good. I don't think that he, seemed super prepared in some instances. And even on the issues where I feel like he's, really shines, I don't think he got the opportunity to make the case that he wanted to in the sort of populist way that I was hoping. What were your initial thoughts, Zach?
Oh God, I have so many. I don't even know. You're going to have to cut me off because I'm just going to start rambling here, because this was absolutely not what I wanted to see. And in fact, I was torn in like real emotional turmoil the entire time I was watching this debate, because had he not had to struggle with being a stroke, I would be pulling my hair out, so pissed off about the words and the substance that came out of his mouth in a few critical times during this debate. A man that I have told my audience is a good option for the Senate race. And I still, gun to my head, obviously he's a better option than Dr. Oz, but my heart and sympathy is with the guy for his recovery. But personally, I just don't give a fuck about his stroke. Not that I don't give a fuck that it happened. I don't give a fuck about how it impacts him as a politician, right? Like as a man to another man, like that's devastating. That's horrible. But I don't give a shit how you present yourself, really. I'm not the kind of guy that's out here looking for the next JFK that can smile on TV and make me feel good about this country. I care about policy. I care about the words that come out of your mouth. And if I have to strain to hear you, I don't give a shit either. I'll read the transcript and find out what you were trying to tell me. That's how I've always looked at this shit. I don't care about your personality. I don't care what you fucking look like. I don't care what you ate for breakfast. And I don't care about just about any other thing in your personal life. I don't care if you cheated on your wife. I don't care if you're a bad father. I care about what the fuck you are going to vote for in the Senate. That's all I care about. So I want to make that clear as day before I start ripping this man's ass. It has absolutely nothing to do. And I was prepared to sit here and defend him at just fucking stroke for stroke. I was ready to put the shields up, as I know Gavin was. We were about to go, fuck all of you. This man is right on the substance, and that's all that matters. Well, guess what, guys? I can't tell you that. I cannot come out here after watching that debate for a full agonizing hour and tell you that this man is right on the substance, because he straight up lied to you. He lied to you. He started saying shit like fracking's a good idea. What? I can't even believe that. And I'm not even going to make excuses for him. I won't say that he's like fucking having trouble thinking on his feet because of the stroke, because I don't know that. All I'm saying is that he got every right-wing hack, like gotcha for the left. And if you've been doing this longer than 5 minutes, like I have, and like John Fetterman has, you have a response to every single one of those right-wing gotchas. I do it all the time in my own life. Okay. Somebody talks to me about fucking fracking and how we need to be energy independent. Guess what? I tell them about the Green New Deal and how we can make zero carbon neutral and be energy independent and do it with high wages for workers and not make sure that we leave any working class member behind, because I'm for the proletariat and I do not want to see any working class suffering, and I want everybody to feed their fucking families. Okay, that's what you say to them. You want to talk about crime rates? Let's talk about income inequality. What's the fucking difference between all these cities that are overrun with crime and the ones that are safe? Guess what? It's income inequality. Look at them. What's the difference? Resources. Who has the resources? Who doesn't? Braddock's a poor fucking town. No wonder there's crime problems there. Do you know what John Fetterman probably did that was more important than giving money to the cops? Actually trying to meaningfully impact the people's lives in Braddock. Okay, actually trying to uplift them out of poverty, give them jobs, give them resources. That's what makes the difference. So for him to just bend the knee, grab his fucking ankles, and get fucked by right-wing talking points, it infuriates me. And I don't care that he had a goddamn stroke, because if he has any plans to go into the Senate and say that we need to be tougher on crime, that defunding the police is a terrible slogan, that we want fucking fracking, are you kidding me? And then I'm supposed to ignore the fact that he put a shotgun to some black guy's chest and said, hey, I'm taking you to the police station, something that would have been unforgivable to me if any other person had ever done that. Like, we're not cool. I will not ever make excuses for you. That is uncalled for. And then you're going to do, on top of all of this, dude, I mean, even against a villain, an obvious carpetbagging charlatan, snake oil salesman that's led a bunch of people on crash diets and fucking horseshit, placebo affected, waste their money, take advantage of poor people, all of that shit. I mean, if you can't bury that guy in the fucking dirt, you don't belong in the Senate. And he's going to lose this race. And I'm sorry, the stroke had a lot to do with it, but so did his dog shit positions. This is bad. I'm not making any more excuses for Fetterman. I'm watching unpredicted as his stock tanks. Okay. And I don't think he's going to win this race. And I'm not at all happy with how he performed tonight.
I'm not at all happy either. And like I said, if he was coming out here with a strong populist progressive message, I would easily look over all the stroke stuff. Like, yes, it was painful to watch him try to struggle through that debate and get his thoughts out. But if he had good thoughts to get out and a serious progressive message to espouse, then I would totally look over all that stuff. As it wasn't a very populist message. I mean, he tried to hammer Dr. Oz over him having multiple houses and being a carpetbagger and stuff, but it seemed like he kind of pre-wrote these lines in an attempt to paint him as an elitist. That's the Oz rule kind of thing that he kept saying over and over again. I just didn't think it was terribly effective. I totally agree that he fell into every instance of right-wing framing. He wasn't able to provide solid left pushback. Again, totally disregarding the stroke. I just felt like a lot of the messaging that I initially appreciated about Dr. Oz kind of seemed to have dissipated in this debate. And it's understandable given the fact that he was probably focusing more on just coherently expressing himself at all. He didn't really have time to artfully construct, good rebuttals. So that's sad. But still, just when you look at the policy, yeah, supporting the police, supporting fracking. These are not policies that I support. And it's tough to really get behind him. I wouldn't quite pound the gavel and say that this race is over for Fetterman. I think that it's probably about a 60-40 now that Oz wins. So I still think that Fetterman has a chance. And the only reason I say that is because there's really not a lot of evidence to prove that debates have a lot of impact on elections, especially at the Senate level. So as painful as that was to watch, I don't think the race is completely over. I think there's still a chance Fetterman pulls it out. But Jonathan here says 100% over for Fetterman after tonight. Is that what you're saying too, Zach?
Look, man, we talked about this in the elevator, I think, earlier today when we were fucking around, and we talked about how obviously the debate doesn't have much sway because how many people watched that? Maybe like 500,000 people saw that on different media forms, right? However many of those people are, not 500,000. I meant like, I don't know, a couple million people. However many of those people are, Pennsylvania voters, we don't know. But I'm looking at that and I'm thinking about all the clips that are going to be able to get cut from it. Like John Fetterman pretending that he's like 2018, John Fetterman, anti-fracking, 2022. John Fetterman, I've always been pro-fracking. That video is going to go around. John Fetterman pretending that he wants, or not pretending, literally meaning it when he says that he wants to have more police in fucking Pennsylvania and that he doesn't support defunding the police and all that kind of shit. Guess what? People who want to fund the police are going to vote for it. The fucking Republican, right? They're going to vote for the Republican. They know that guy wants to fund the police, right? They know that guy supports fracking, right? So why is he doing this shit where he's like trying to take the diet Republican position? That is everything that people have hated about Democrats for like the last 30 fucking years. Okay. It's taking the diet Republican position and trying to act like that's fucking innovative. Right. And that's what he's doing right here. And I guarantee you, he's going to get hammered over the fucking coals for this. And not only that, Gavin and I aren't talking about it, but the public is vicious. The media has no ethics. And of course they're going to hammer this guy for sounding like he just had a stroke. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't believe in that. I do not give a fuck, but I think to pretend that that's not going to have a huge benefit to Oz in this race, I think it does. I think that the people of Pennsylvania will look at that guy and they will look at the clips of him and it will definitely have a negative impact on how they think of the guy.
I do have to slightly disagree. And despite the fact that a lot of Fetterman's answers on, for example, the police or fracking are not in line with my personal progressive politics, I don't necessarily think it would have helped him in the eyes of your average Pennsylvania voter or independent voter, for example, if he had come out in favor of the Green New Deal live on that stage or defund the police. Do you really think that would help him with the voters he needs to get?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Because here's what happens if you're an effective politician that actually wants to reach people. When they start feeding you all that shit, people know, Gavin, even the working class people know that we're all going to die from fucking climate change if we don't do it. I don't think that people are so removed from, no, I'm serious. You're laughing. I think people know we're all going to die from climate change if we don't do something about it. So if you, instead of saying like, oh, like, if I'm on that stage and Dr. Oz is setting up all that shit for me, I'm going to tell him I 100% agree that we should not be at the whimsy of any other foreign power for our natural gas or our resources. And I also am never going to advocate for any Pennsylvania worker to be put out of work. Okay, I'm actually going to advocate for more robust payments, for better working conditions, for high-paying jobs that are competitive. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by making Pennsylvania the first state that gets to carbon zero. How? X, Y, Z. I'm going to put people to work doing this. I'm going to put people to work doing that. I'm going to put people to work doing this. And all of these things are going to make a sustainable planet for your kids. I think that is a salient message to everybody, and not like, I support fracking too, guys. Like, no, that's a horseshit answer.
I'm not saying that his answer wasn't horseshit. It definitely was. I'm just saying there might have been a more artful way to respond to it, admittedly, but I just don't know if coming out in favor of the Green New Deal or defunding the police, as much as I personally support those policies, I don't know if that would have flown either with the voters that he needs to attract right now, because obviously everyone that's on the left isn't going to vote for Dr. Oz. He does need to appeal to the more independent and centrist voters that might be put off by, certain aspects of the far right wing in this country, the Trumpian elements of the Republican Party. So I don't necessarily know if coming out in favor of like the Green New Deal on the debate stage would have helped John Fetterman at this point. Again, even though I personally would do that, and yeah, if I was running for office, I would do the same thing. Don't get me wrong. I would, do exactly what you said. I just don't know if that specifically is what's going to hurt him after this debate. I don't think that the policy matters themselves are really going to be consequential at all. Actually,
well, he's totally fucked because he looks like he can't lead.
That's what I'm
shit.
saying. That's what I'm saying. And he could have said anything. He could have said, I'll, give everyone $5 million tomorrow. It doesn't really matter what he said as far as the policy goes. As far as I'm concerned, I think 99% of the discourse surrounding this debate and the commentary of it is going to all be about his performance as it regards to the stroke. I think that's going to completely dominate the discourse. And if he had come out in favor of defund the police, for example, then Dr. Oz would just make a million ads saying that he wants your wife to get raped and your kids to get murdered. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think that would have put him over the edge either. I think this whole debate, all the coverage surrounding it is 100% going to be revolving around the way he performed, the way he responded, and unfortunately his stroke, which again is really unfortunate given the fact that no one, Republican, Democrat, whatever, should have to recover from a goddamn stroke in this public of a way. So that's the only thing I would say about that.
My only pushback that I would give to that, Gavin, because I agree, right? Like, the elephant in the room is that the people of this country are ruthless and nasty, and that they're going to drag this guy through the coals for fucking having a stroke and having a speech problem now and being slow and not coming across as an artful fucking TV polished politician, right? That's 100% true. But I think that when you look at a state uniquely like Pennsylvania, what gave, like Bernie Sanders, if I'm not mistaken, in the Democratic primary, beat Hillary in Pennsylvania. Right. And he did so with those voters that turned around and voted for Donald Trump.
But that's a Democratic primary, not a general election. He needs to appeal to independents.
Where you need Democratic voters. So those exact same people that Bernie Sanders won over Hillary Clinton in the primary, in the general election, turned out and voted for Donald Trump. Why was Bernie able to win them over? Because he gave them a salient promise for their future that was pro climate, that was pro worker, and all of those things. So I agree that the fucking police issue is kind of a non-winner for him in Pennsylvania, unfortunately. As much as I agree with defunding the police, that is a non-winner. But I do think what he could have done that would have been really smart, where there were 2 times where they hit him with like bullshit right-wing talking points that I think he could have really done a, bait and switch on them and really fucked them up. One was when they started talking about, minimum wage increases is going to kill all the mom and pop shops on Main Street, right? And he should have said, well, we've always had massive subsidies for Wall Street and the oil and gas industry. I want to restrict those and use those subsidies to help mom and pop shops pay their employees, actual living wages. That would have been so much cheaper, and it would have impacted more people's lives way more tangibly, right? So that would have been an easy W for him there. Instead, he's just like, horrible fucking answer, dog shit answer. The other time that, because he would just be like, this is what I believe in, I believe in. I'm like, no, you have to convince people that they should believe that. The other time that I thought he could have really, really, really hit them on the heads was what we were just talking about with not the policing, but but fracking, which was, hey, we need a Green New Deal, and this is how it's going to be better for the people of Pennsylvania, and here's how it's, and this is why I stand by what I said in 2018. I can't believe he's walking back the fracking thing. That made me really mad live. The fact that I didn't realize that, guys. That's on me. I should have done my homework better. I'd seen the 2018 quote where I've never supported fracking. I'm like, based, fuck yeah, fuck fracking. It's poison, all this shit. Then he's like, I've always supported fracking. I'm like, okay, well now you've just lost me because I'm not signing up to support some guy that's always supported fracking and the police. Okay, the shit lips can have you, John. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, totally. And thank you so much, Ramin, for the $10. Get ready for the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, it's really crazy and honestly just surreal that Dr. Oz will likely be a U.S. senator. Someone that even when I was a kid, I knew that Dr. Oz was like a fucking phony. Like even when I was 10 years old, I knew that Dr. Oz was like a fucking loser, charlatan, snake oil salesman. It's so obvious. And he's about to be a fucking U.S. senator. Like I said, probably 60% chance at least. But thank you so much, Rami, and really appreciate that. Thank you also, BW in Wisconsin. Hard to watch. Left came back to your show. You guys, to show you guys some super chat love. Keep it live. Thank you so much, BW in Wisconsin. Really appreciate that. It was hard to watch. I do not blame you for kind of, dipping out for a little bit, but I really appreciate the fact that you came back to show us some super chat love. We always love seeing you in the chat, and that's really appreciated.
Yeah, shout out to you, BW in Wisconsin. Yeah, it was hard for me to watch too. Imagine this being your fucking job where you can't walk away. You just have to cringe along with the whole thing, man. I wanted to just go like this and not care anymore, but I'm like, no, what if there's something important that happens that I have to make a joke about? I gotta listen with my fucking full ears. It was really, really a fucking bummer watching this, dude, because I thought what I had planned to do was come out here with a full-throated defense of Fetterman and say how he'd been right on all the substance, but of course it was a little rickety. Rough waters after a stroke. That's not his fault. As long as the policy's there, I'm a ride with him. And that was what I was going to tell all of you. I am a soy, so fuck all of you. Sosuke. Gavin over here fucking with me while I'm trying to rant. No, I'm telling you guys this, that if he had done that, I would have gone to the fucking mattresses, okay? I would have been ardent #1 John Fetty Wap supporter, okay? I would have been out here being like, fuck all these people. He's just a kid, wearing the clothes that his mom laid out for him and out here like fucking, trying to say what's what to the people of Pennsylvania. As it stands, this debate took a massively sympathetic leftist and made them not really give a fuck about John Fetterman. In fact, Gavin and I were having a conversation about how this is kind of like an Ed Markey situation. I remember when Gavin and I covered the Ed Markey primary victory over the Kennedy guy, Joe Kennedy, and it was like, yeah, he fucking won. That was cool. Fuck the Kennedy. That guy doesn't even support legal pot. But like, it's hard to get like super stoked because there's like 4 or 5 thorns in your side about Ed Markey. It's like we're at 1 step forward, 1 step back kind of deal. That's the kind of political arena that John Fetterman has entered. He's now like a Ro Khanna kind of a fucking guy where it's like every once in a while, I don't doubt that he would do something based if he got into like base, not like fucking insane, but like call on Joe Biden to legalize all cannabis, or like fucking call on Joe Biden to, appoint another base person to, something, right? Or, oh yeah, unions in the NLRB, good stuff. Okay. But everything else, this guy is not worth your money. Don't send him a check. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And thanks again, BW in Wisconsin. I did want to spend a little bit of time, though, talking about how Dr. Oz did, because obviously we've talked a lot about how John Fetterman did and the way he performed, unfortunately, due to his stroke. It really sucks, because I think even with everything we said, all of the, pitfalls and all of the issues that made me want to pull my hair out, I still think he would have pretty handily won this debate tonight if it weren't for his stroke. Because let's be honest, guys, despite the fact that he's a polished TV snake oil salesman, Dr. Oz came off like the most generic fucking Republican candidate that I've ever seen. Just a totally kind of unmemorable, like a TV politician, just a fake politician. Like this is a guy you would see in like a movie or a TV, just like generic Republican politician. Nothing memorable about him, despite the fact that he has that kind of slick TV presentational vibe. You don't really walk away with a real agenda. You don't really walk away with much of a personality. Again, just your standard right-wing talking point machine, saying everything he knows he needs to say in order to not get, caught up in the Donald Trump pitfalls, but also in order to try to appeal to normie voters. It was a totally generic and unmemorable performance from Dr. Oz. But again, it just sucks because next to John Fetterman, he seemed a lot more competent just because he could, get through his sentences without stuttering and because he's not recovering from a stroke publicly. So I don't want to, make it sound like Dr. Oz did a great job tonight. When it came to the substance, he was absolute dog shit. And most of his answers were just the most generic right-wing garbage I've ever heard. When they asked him about Donald Trump, are you following the investigations into the president? Oh, no, I haven't really been keeping up with that. What the fuck? Then why are you supporting him? This guy's under an FBI investigation. He's under 1 million investigations. It's your fucking duty as a senator. How are you going to say you're going to support him if he's going to be the nominee if you don't even follow the criminal investigations he's under? You're out here talking about how John Fetterman's soft on crime, yet you're not even paying attention to the fucking former president who happens to be the biggest crook in the goddamn nation, who might literally go down for a myriad of fucking crimes against this country, a treasonous fucking bastard, and you can't even pay attention to that? It just sucks that John Fetterman wasn't mentally there enough, or not mentally there enough, but the fact that his stroke prevented him from calling that kind of stuff out. Because again, even with all the stuff we just mentioned aside, I think that Fetterman would have swept the floor if it weren't for the stroke.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point to make. We are coming down hard on Fetterman. For people who this is your first time ever tuning into the Vanguard, like Gavin and I are the dirtbag left, where that's just my fucking eyesight always goes to the Democratic candidate that's the most left, because I always feel like that person is like, even if it's a far cry, they're the closest to what I believe, whereas Dr. Oz might be literally the antithesis of every position I have. Obviously he's not the most odious Republican, but he's pretty darn close. The man killed puppies. As far as I'm concerned, you can't come back from that one. Nobody even fucking talks about that. You guys have a dog? Anybody? You guys right-wingers that are out here telling me that I'm on fucking crazy pills. Do you have a dog? Yeah, you're going to vote for a guy that killed 300 dogs. I'm not even fucking kidding you guys. Like, think about that. Think about how your fucking brain is working. Like, I'm not out here saying a bunch of fucking positive things about John Fetterman. I'm happy to criticize the guy, but you guys have to give me that. You're about to vote for a man who kills puppies. What the fuck? Is that where this country has come through? Can we not find 2 non-puppy killers to run for Senate in this fucking country? Are you kidding me? There aren't 2 guys. One's never chased down a black dude and taken him to the jail, and the other one's never killed puppies. Can we not have that in this country where it's just 2 guys, where none of them have done something so fucking awful I never want to look at them again? I mean, it's tough. It's slim pickings for the U.S. Senate. But yeah, let's roast Dr. Oz for a second, because I got a lot of nasty shit to say about that guy too. Besides the fact that he kills dogs, he has this real 1990s infomercialness about him, the kind of shit that if I'd woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning while I was sleeping over at my grandparents' house would come on the TV. He's always peddling snake oil, but he's also been market tested to shit so that he just knows exactly where he thinks the white picket fence Americans are, the people who still pick up their fucking landline telephone and dial in to buy the fucking horseshit products that he's selling people. That's exactly who he knows how to reach. And if that's who you're trying to go for, screen tested middle America, chef's kiss. He did a great job, because he had absolutely no personality. It was just straight up unseasoned chicken, right? That's all he is. And I think that, if that's the kind of politician that you're still looking for, of course you would see that Dr. Oz, despite anything that came out of his mouth, the fact that it's all lies, the fact that he has 10 houses, the fact that he's not actually from Pennsylvania. No, what you're getting is a screen-tested guy that knows exactly what to say over and over again. He knows exactly how to point and how to block himself on stage and how to remain poised. And what I have understood over the last 5 years that I've been watching American politics is that most Americans are pretty tired of that. They can see through it. They think it's fake. They think it's cheap plastic, fucking whatever, right? And that was why the Republican Party rejected it point blank with guys like Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, women like Marjorie Taylor Greene and whoever, Lauren Boebert, these more fucking ostentatious crazy fuckers, right? And then the Democrats and the never Trumpers, they were all like, no, we need to be more. Dr. Oz is a weird mixed bag, because while he'll say he doesn't think Trump is a problem and that he would support him if he ran for president again, and he did even shockingly earn Donald Trump's endorsement just because Donald Trump loves anybody that's been on TV before. He does straddle this line where he doesn't really behave like much of a Trumper. He's just trying to court that vote. And it's utterly pathetic. He stands for nothing. His politics are dismal. He wouldn't say if he wouldn't vote against that Lindsey Graham national abortion ban, because he would. He's just going to say a bunch of shit like Josh Hawley did. Josh Hawley ran for fucking Senate in my state. Okay, one of the most disgusting men in politics. And one of the things that he ran on is how he actually didn't believe in not covering children and people because of pre-existing conditions. And he would go on this fake pseudo heartwarming thing about how his son has a pre-existing condition and he would never do anything that would put children like his son in jeopardy. Then he goes out and he says, fuck this, I'm 100% voting to overturn Obamacare. And it just because John McCain fucking in the last ditch effort to fucking give a fuck you to Donald Trump before he died said, I'm not letting you overturn, repeal, and replace Obamacare. So this is exactly one of those instances with Dr. Oz. So if abortion is an issue for you that you're on the fence about, but you find yourself being conservative on other issues, just know you're giving up your right to a fucking abortion if you vote for that guy.
100%. That is very true as well. And yeah, it's unfortunate that John Fetterman didn't have the opportunity to hammer him harder on that and really kind of catch him off guard. But again, given the fact that he's recovering from a stroke, it did make it a lot harder for him to kind of be quick on his feet in the way necessary to catch Dr. Oz in a tough corner, so to speak. So thank you so much, Jonathan. Also, people came to watch for the ill-fated debate, but stayed for the Zac rants. Yeah, you guys are in for a treat tonight because after a few beers, Zac does get pretty spicy. We love to see it.
Yeah, I'm going to let Gavin hold it down for the next 30 seconds while I take a piss because all that beer comes with consequences. But I'll be right back.
Yeah, Zac will be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere. And again, thank you so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate that $5. We have been on a bit of a roll tonight. Thank you also, Mike H, for the $2. Really appreciate that. Don't donate to Fetterman, but still vote for him. Yeah, I mean, again, stroke aside, what it really comes down to, and I think what it really will come down to for a lot of people is, do you want the Democrats to retain the Senate majority or do you want them to lose it? And again, you could put up literally anyone. It doesn't matter to most people as far as candidate quality goes, unfortunately. I think really what matters to a lot of people, whether you're Democrat or Republican, is how you're going to vote in the Senate. And if you care about abortion, for example, if you care about legalizing cannabis, if you care about the issues that John Fetterman support, legalizing cannabis, like I said, $15 an hour minimum wage, then I think those people will still probably vote for John Fetterman because, again, you don't have to be perfectly physically and mentally sound to cast those votes. So, I think that's fair to say. What would you say about that, Zac? The fact that at this point, it does seem like for a lot of Americans, candidate quality doesn't matter as much. What they really are going to vote based on is whether or not they want the Republicans to control the Senate or the Democrats. So it doesn't really matter your physical or mental condition. All it really matters is how you're going to vote. Do you think that could still make it so that John Fetterman could pull this off again, just because of the fact that people only really care about how the guy's going to vote?
In a perfect world, yes, or maybe not in a perfect world, but just in a different world, yes. But what I think about the problem with John Fetterman is I think about the likely voters in a state like Pennsylvania. And I know that the likely voters always turn out to vote red. That's why Donald Trump won Pennsylvania twice, and it hasn't been since Barack Obama that a Democrat has carried the state. And I think about that, and I think about likely Republican voters in the state of Pennsylvania, and I think about likely Democrat voters in the state of Pennsylvania. And what I worry about is that after seeing performances like this, the likely Republicans show up and the likely Democrats show up and not enough other people show up. And so that's what I think is going to give Oz the election, is that if Fetterman was able to bring a wave of atypical voters, first-time voters, every other election voters, I showed up in 2016 but haven't since voters, then he could have pulled it off. And that was always what the margin was. The margin of his victory was always the non-traditional voters, the freak power that existed in the state of Pennsylvania, right? And instead, all those people said, yeah, actually, fuck you, John. You're just like the rest of them. And I'm going to stay home. And maybe I wouldn't stay home, but Gavin and I were talking just the other day about how fucking they make it so hard to vote. Like, this is what I have to do in Missouri. I had to go with Gavin to get in a Board of Elections electorate card. I had to go to the DMV, not because I wanted to renew my license, which I didn't because my Kansas license doesn't expire for like 5 more years, but just so they could take a picture of me with my lease to show that I'm a Missouri identified person, because I lost my fucking passport and it was not going to come in enough time for me to use it as my like non-state issued, but like my federal government issued ID, etc. So I had to go through all this bureaucracy. It would have been a nightmare. I never would have done it if I didn't like have my own car and like a lot of free time and all like a job where I would feel like just horrible if I didn't actually participate in the election. All of those kinds of things. And then you think about everybody else where it's like, yeah, you guys have to do that. And you have no real reason to. And it's not going to impact your life at all. And you're also not going to come out here and tell your audience how you voted. So why would you show up for a guy like John Fetterman? I haven't the slightest fucking idea. After watching that debate and everything he told you about funding the police, you're like, he's 50-50. I'll just stay home. And I can't argue with you. I think that likely voters show up for John Fetterman. If you're a Democrat, and likely voters show up for Dr. Oz. I don't think they get fucking shit for anybody else. I think it's, and I think that gives the edge to Oz by a big margin, unfortunately. Really switched exactly how I felt about it, where it was like big chance of Fetterman winning and then Oz like hanging around. Now I think it's big chance of Oz winning. And then like maybe I want to cover my own ass by saying it's not impossible that John could win, but I don't see it happening anymore.
I think it's about 60-40. I think it's about 60-40. I don't think there's a lot of proof that debates really move the needle all that much. This might be an exception because of the stroke. But even with that said, I think it was the honorable thing to do for John Fetterman to come out here and debate, because people do have a right to see how he can, react and respond to these kind of situations. So it was definitely the right thing to do for John Fetterman. I think that's why he did it. That being said, I don't think he should have done it. I think he should have just never debated. You know what I'm saying? Because he's the lieutenant governor. People knew who he is. Definitely a lot of people know about the stroke thing. But I think that he could have potentially just coasted to a, decently easy victory and not had to deal with all of the clips that are going to surface now thanks to this debate. Again, it was the right thing to debate. Don't get me wrong. I think it was the honorable thing to do. I think it was the correct thing to do. Voters deserve to know how you're faring post-stroke. But as far as his chances go, I honestly don't think it was a wise move for him to participate in this debate. I don't think that people would have cared definitely some people would have made a big deal about it. He never debated. He refuses to debate. But I don't think enough people would have cared. And ultimately now this is just going to bog down the conversation. It's going to make it harder to focus on the policies. It's going to make it harder to focus on the populist issues, which has defined his campaign up until this point, like union rights, like $15 an hour minimum wage, like legalizing cannabis. And now the conversation is totally just shifted to his stroke and his recovery. And that's not really the position you want to be in, because it puts him on the defensive instead of the offensive, which he was earlier on in the campaign when he was doing really well and beating Oz by double digits. You remember earlier in the campaign when he was constantly talking about Oz being a carpetbagger, constantly hitting Oz for being an elitist. He was up massively, over 10 points at one point. Now the whole conversation is about his stroke, and Fetterman is thoroughly on the defensive instead of the offensive. I don't think that's a good place to be right before the election. If I were Fetterman and not Fetterman's team, I wouldn't have participated in this debate. Do you agree with that, Zach?
I agree with the fact that it was a better strategy for him to say no. I don't think that's up for debate, actually. I don't think that you can argue that it was better for his campaign to participate in this debate. I just happen to also agree with Gavin that if you're running to represent the people of Pennsylvania, you have to debate your opponent. I am not one of these people that thinks that it's okay to run for office and then not, square off with your opponent in a battlefield of all ideas. That and I, to his credit, I think John Fetterman agrees with me. I think his campaign agrees with me. I think that's why they did this. And in the world of honor and ethics, they get a cookie for that and a thumbs up. But in the real world of politics, no, they fucked themselves doing this, because they had very little to gain unless they thought that that John Fetterman was going to come out there and really exceed expectations, right? If they thought that he was going to go out there and lay it down, show everybody what was what, and put Dr. Oz's fucking carpet-bagging face in the dirt, then he should have absolutely done it. But instead, They put out this statement talking about how he was going to do really bad. And then he shows up and he does even worse. And oh my God, that was going to be, I know Gavin and I disagree about this. I think we're going to look back at it and call this the final nail in the coffin. So I think that from an ethics and honor and like man to man, I look you in the eyes and I respect that you showed up and did this. In the clothes that you look like you've never worn in your life. I would have respected it a lot more if he'd showed up in a fucking Carhartt sweatshirt and fucking shorts, cargo shorts like he does, and just been John Fetterman. That would have been based and at least given me something based to talk about from the Fetterman camp. Shout out to Progressive Mind for the micheladas. You know, here's the thing. I fucking hate myself, man. Maybe I've just had bad micheladas. I love Modelo. I'll drink Modelo all day. At our bar, we've got this beer called Cerveza Royale. One of my favorite beers in town from Kansas City. But as soon as you start pouring that Bloody Mary mix bullshit in there, it loses me. Gavin likes it. My buddy Parker used to drink them all the time. I don't understand it. I'm like, why do I want tomato juice? That's like the guys that do it with the Clamato shit. I'm like, are you crazy? Is this something you actually like? And it is. And I'm not judging anybody that likes it. But I really appreciate you, Progressivo. We'll save all the michelada for Gavin and all the regular beer for me.
You don't like Bloody Marys in general, though, right? Because I love Bloody Marys. It's one of my favorite. It might be my second favorite cocktail of all time behind the classic margarita. But yeah, I love Bloody Marys. So therefore, I also like micheladas. Either way, thank you so much, Progressivo Mind.
I mean, look, I will drink a Bloody Maria with mezcal because I really like mezcal. And I actually like tomato juices stuff sometimes. But with the vodka in there, and if it's like, I mean, maybe if it's good, if it's a good Bloody Mary, like house-made Bloody Mary mix, you know, how some places like make it in-house with the fresh tomatoes. But if you're just telling me you're pouring that bottle shit that looks like, you know, lunch lady salsa into the bottom of your fucking shaker shit, and then, you know, 2 ounces of Tito's, and then a fucking dill pickle on top, I'm going to tell you to get fucked, lady. I'm not drinking that, and I'm not smelling it. If you sit next to me, I'll go to another.
Well, those are obviously gross, but if you get a real Bloody Mary, like go to a Parlor in Kansas City, incredible Bloody Marys.
Yeah, the American Airlines Bloody Mary made me want to throw up looking at it, though.
Yeah, don't feel like a fucking airplane Bloody Mary. What the fuck? Yeah. But thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And also thank you for becoming a member. Really appreciate that, man. Super appreciated. Great way to support the show. You get access to our emotes in the chat. Come on.
Yeah, Brittany says her uncle did that Clamato shit. Brittany, are you like Hispanic? I've only met Mexican dudes that fuck with that shit, and they love it. And I'm not judging you at all. Everybody's culture is different, what you grow up with palate wise. But it's always been like dudes with like lowriders, fades, and mariachi music that actually get down with the Clamato shit. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and yeah, she sure is. But yeah, I draw the line at the Clamato shit too. Even though I'm a vegetarian, so I wouldn't eat that anyway. But even if I did eat meat and fish, I would not fuck with that. That's disgusting. But thank you so much, Alex, also for the $4.99. Now that we're on the topic of beer and wine and drinks and alcohol and drugs, alcohol or weed, depends on the mood. But usually Zach and I are more 420 crowd.
Yeah, look, hear me out, because I am a bartender, right? And I love having some beers, and I love making cocktails for people as like a culinary expression. I like cocktails for like having a good night, going out. It's a special occasion kind of a deal. But I mean, I'm not about to drink an old fashioned at 11 a.m. In fact, I won't drink at all until the sun goes down, almost ever. And basically ever. Where do we drink before the sun goes down for the most part here? Like, I'm not a day drinker. That fucks up my whole day. That being said, I can wake up at 10 a.m., get a cup of coffee and smoke a joint and have the best day of my life. So I'm a weed person all day, every day. I'm like a cocktail person on Friday nights at 11.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Not much of a day drinker, and am a big fan of the herb, although I am on a tea break right now, so painfully suffering through that.
I know. I was like, Gavin, do you want to, get some coffee later? Whenever you're done.
Oh God, alcohol does lower my inhibitions though, because now I'm like, some weed does something pretty fucking
I know
good.
he's gonna get high as fuck after this is over.
Yeah, I made it like 4 or 5 days. That's pretty fucking good, bro. That's pretty good. But back on topic. Thank you so much, Armando, for the $5. Really appreciate that. I live in Pennsylvania, and the state is evenly split. Eastern is blue and Western is red, and largely depends on who turns out. Biden won Pennsylvania in 2020. That's true. Biden did win Pennsylvania in 2020. Sorry, I'm drinking all this beer, guys. The problem is that Trump was on the ballot in 2020, and Trump's not on the ballot in 2022. Trump motivates Democrats to come out and vote against him. Dr. Oz, not so much. I mean, he's definitely unlikable. He'll definitely motivate some Democrats to come out against him, but not in the same way that Trump did, right? And also, you have to figure in that midterms, usually the party in power, which is currently the Democrats, suffers pretty big losses. This is a historical trend that goes back decades now. Basically, whoever the party in power is, they lose seats in the midterm. So even though Biden won Pennsylvania in 2020, it's likely to say that a lot of the states that he won in 2020 will go to Republicans in the midterms. And part of the reason why is because Biden's been a pretty miserably fucking terrible president, and people don't want to affirm his agenda. They don't want to see more of the kind of policy that he's proposing. And that's a really pathetic state of affairs. If you think about it here in America, both parties are so bad that every election cycle, they perform so miserably and fail to deliver on the promises they made to the American people that the American people go and vote to swing the pendulum back in the other direction, just in the desperate fucking hopes that things will get better for them, that the economy will improve, that inflation will improve, and that their lives will get better. So it's actually kind of sad, but you're not wrong, Armando. Biden won Pennsylvania in 2020, but that doesn't mean that John Fetterman's going to win the Senate race. That doesn't mean the Democrats are going to do particularly well in general come the midterms.
Yeah, that's actually my bad. I forgot that Joe Biden did actually carry Pennsylvania. It was Ohio that I had in mind that he didn't carry, that Obama carried twice. That is my mistake. So maybe my prognostication will be wrong. I will let all of you know that I am the reigning champion on the Vanguard Electoral College map showdown, to be contested again in 2024. Gavin over here. And for anybody who's a diehard Vanguardian, a really fun thing for you to do is watch our election night coverage. But I'm kidding, of course. If I'm wrong, Gavin can have this victory lap next week, or not next week, November. But yeah, look, it's coming down to the wire. I don't think anybody really knows. It's all just gut feelings. And my gut feeling is that the Democrats are going to get stomped on the nads. And I just think that that's going to happen by partially being where Dr. Oz actually becomes a senator. And I'm trying really hard to brace myself for that, because I remember back watching the Republican primaries and being like, how the fuck is Dr. Oz making it through the primaries? And then he did on a women of prayer and a Trump endorsement. Don't think he would have ever won that fucking primary if it wasn't for the Trump endorsement. I remember when Mitch McConnell was having behind closed doors meetings where he was talking about writing off the state of Pennsylvania, not spending any more money on ads there and spending it on like JD Vance's race against Tim Ryan, and spending it on some more like actual like winnable races like Nevada and that kind of shit. And now look at how the tables have turned. So who knows at this point? But after listening to John Fetterman, and I'm talking about the substance of what came out of his mouth for anybody who needs clarification. I mean, oh my God, did I recoil? Oh my God, did I say, John, why couldn't I have sat down with you for 45 minutes? And here is what makes me want to pull my hair out of my head. If I had been alone for 45 minutes with John Fetterman, the coaching I could have done with this man. You're a stroke victim. That's fine. Let's work within those parameters. How many words is it easy for you to remember? That's a serious, valid question for somebody who has like a cognitive, however temporary cognitive impairment, right? So to say, where does it start to be hard for you to remember and get a lot of words out? Can we do 4 words, 5 words in a row? Let's talk about that. Let's practice them. And then you start giving the guy slogans to say, whenever they roast you about the minimum wage, say this 5-word slogan 6 times like Donald Trump would and get it in their fucking brain and then get the crowd cheering. That's what I would have done. Stop subsidizing Wall Street, start subsidizing Main Street. The United States is going to grow the middle class from one town to the next. Bam! People are cheering. Give them that Jesse Ventura energy that I know you're capable of as John Fetterman. I mean, I watched that a clip that we pulled at the beginning of our doc. Check it out if you haven't. We went to go visit Jesse Ventura and talk about his historic victory. And the clip of him talking about, we shocked the world. You know, all of this fucking shit. Like, that's what people want from Fetterman. People want him to be the big, strong guy that says, we're going to take the world by the bars and we're going to be the best. And it's going to be for the working class. And then be like, look at this punk guy that's never done a day's worth of work. He probably doesn't even wipe his own ass every day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what people want. But that's not what he gave them.
100%. And actually, Kevin pointed out or made a similar point when they asked Fetterman how he'd pay for public college. He should have simply yelled tax the rich, but he gave a nothing burger answer instead. Kind of what you're saying, Zach. He could have reduced a lot of these answers down to catchy phrases that really get to the point and really, address the substance of the matter in a kind of a pithy and smart way. Tax the rich. Unfortunately, when push came to shove, that's not what happened. And a lot of times John Fetterman didn't really seem to know how to respond to those questions. And he would just say things like, I just believe that, or, that's just how I feel, which unfortunately is just not an adequate answer. And it's not going to address voters' concerns that might not already be on board with said policy position, if that makes sense. You really need to boil these complicated positions down into a pithy and catchy phrase a lot of times. And he failed to do that, which was really unfortunate. And it just felt like he was consistently caught off guard by the questions, which again is completely understandable given the fact that he's recovering from a goddamn stroke, something that no one should ever have to do on public television, much less a debate where you have 30 seconds to 60 seconds to respond and it's all live and, you're being scrutinized in real time. It's an unfortunate situation, but I totally agree, Kevin. And I totally agree with what you said too, Zach, that he could have done better in a lot of those instances by reducing his positions down to more catchy and pithy phrases, which is something that Bernie Sanders did well.
Yeah, exactly. And instead, he just had a couple of weird moments where, like, on China, when he was talking about how we need to be hard on China, he just sounded like Donald Trump, where it was like, bro, China, we need China to respect us again. China, we got to hit China. This guy doesn't want to hit China. He makes his stuff in China. And I'm like, bro, 5 words that tell us what you actually think about China. Let's produce domestically and not support, wage slavery abroad. Okay, great. That's all we needed to know as American workers. We're going to bring the jobs home. That's very easy to remember. And when you ask people about China, say, we should stop making our shit in China and we should make it in America.
Right. And I think that's why he chose the China angle, because he knows that Republicans are super anti-China and he wanted to kind of hit Dr. Oz and like, oh, well, you make your shit in China. And that's a decent idea, but in execution, I don't think he really pulled it off, which is, again, unfortunate. And also, thank you, Bruce. Thank you so much for the $4.99. As a Minnesota resident, our former governor had a stroke. Public office isn't conducive for real recovery for Fetterman. He'd be a blue no matter who's zombie. That is true. Obviously, campaigning, public office, not conducive for a real recovery from a stroke. That being said, the comment about him being a blue no matter who's zombie. I mean, that's kind of what most people are voting for at this point, regardless of the candidate. Like I think most people, if you're a Democrat, you're voting for the Democrats to control the Senate. If you're a Republican, you're voting for the Republicans to control the Senate. The rest matters, but not as much as that, right? So mostly people are going to vote for Fetterman based on how he's going to vote, not on the way he talks or, the specific minutia of his policy beliefs. So I don't think that's going to matter as much as some people might think. But don't get me wrong. This definitely was not a great look.
Yeah, look, he does come across like a blue no matter who zombie in that entire fucking debate performance. And I do agree that it's going to be hard for him to recover publicly. It's not my position that he should have dropped out. I think that he, has every right to continue to run, but I mean, this is going to be an obstacle for the guy. And clearly, it's been difficult. It's been a hard road for him. We try to be as sympathetic as possible for this, but he is still running for public office. So you have to fucking analyze the guy like you would anybody else. And my only pushback to what you're saying, Gavin, is 100%. Almost every Democrat that shows up to vote is just voting for somebody who's going to be a Democrat. And they think, oh, why are the Democrats right on everything? And the Republicans are just wrong on everything. And that's the exact same as most of the Republican voters who show up and they're just like, damn, why are the Democrats wrong on everything when the Republicans are just right on everything? Because that's how most people vote. They're just like ideologues. They're just voting for the person with the D or voting for the person with the R. What starts to matter to me is the swing voters, the people who don't do that. On Fetterman's side, it's going to be because they're people like us. They're people who don't want fracking. They're people who don't want the fucking cops. And they're guys that liked Fetterman because they thought he was based, because he kind of flirted with a lot of those left-wing values. Maybe Fetterman is going to swap out all of those voters who are now massively discouraged after hearing the words that came out of his mouth tonight and regain all those other non-voters who would have voted for, like, just been like, oh, I wish there was a more rational Democrat. But I just don't think that person exists in the, certainly not in the numbers that the leftist voter exists in. And I think anybody else that he would have won over by talking like sense on crime has already been won over by, or sense on crime, like bullshit on crime, but like whatever other like mainstream media outlet will just say a sensible crime policy, like support our police and don't ask any fucking questions. I think that just drives away the swing voters he needs to fucking get across the finish.
Also, I just wanted to say we're over 2,000 viewers right now. Super cool. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Anyone that's new to the channel, really appreciate everyone tuning in. We're not done yet, so don't go anywhere. But just wanted to say super cool. We hit 2,000 viewers tonight. That's awesome. If anyone's new to the channel, welcome. We are the Vanguard. We do a lot of political coverage, cover a lot of online lefty stuff as well. But we're going to be doing more midterms coverage coming soon. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. But pretty cool that we have such a big audience right now, huh, Zach?
Oh, yeah, dude, it's based as fuck. You guys want to listen to the Drunk Guard ramble, and we're going to keep coming at you one after the other. But yeah, shout out to you, Bruce. And I think we have a few more super chats to get to. Shout out to you, Comrade. Oz at times kept making Fetterman sound better than he is. Fetterman is just another Democrat. Dude, Fetterman did 100% of the heavy lifting on making himself look like just another Democrat. Started talking about how I've always been pro-fracking. I've always been pro the police. I've always been anti-China. What the fuck, man? I mean, come on.
Yeah, especially in the Bernie Sanders instance where Dr. Oz was saying, well, you're supported by radical socialist Bernie Sanders and you campaigned with radical Bernie Sanders and, you were endorsed by Bernie, all this stuff about Bernie Sanders. The correct, response to that should have been, yeah, and Bernie Sanders won the state of Pennsylvania, motherfucker. Like the people love Bernie Sanders and damn straight I'm endorsed by him. I'm happily identify as a Bernie Sanders Democrat instead of trying to kind of like flee from that position and be like, oh, I'm not a radical. You're the one that had Bernie Sanders on your show, which was kind of a good line, admittedly. But I don't think he should have fled from those positions. I think he kind of fell into some of the framing a lot of the times, and he should have just owned who he is. He should just own the fact that, yeah, I'm a progressive populist, or at least he was. Based on this debate, you might not know that.
Yeah, it was very disappointing to see him come out and say shit like that on the debate, but it is what it is. Shout out to you, Comrade. Really appreciate the $5 and always enjoy seeing you in our chat. Do we have any more? Oh,
yeah,
more
we're going
nerves.
back now to some super chats from earlier while the debate was still going on. More nerves or post-stroke indica. That's funny, Gene. I'm about to have some post-stroke indica after this stream's over, but
nice celebratory fucking evening for the Vanguard. But yeah, look, I think that obviously a lot of this is post-stroke recovery. Like I watched the beginning of this, like really like, oh God, like how are we going to see this guy? And obviously it is very clear. There's no hiding that this man has suffered some serious setbacks as a result of his stroke. But I just don't really, I'm not one of those guys that's looking for an inspiring leader, which is why it doesn't really like bother me. I'm looking for a guy that's going to show up and vote for the policy I believe in. So what sticks with me is more the fact that he said, oh, I'm going to completely abandon that policy that is very important to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christopher. Really appreciate that. And thank you also, Winston, for the $10. This was again earlier in the live stream. I want a national conservative politician who supports basic care for the citizens. I want a 2-tier universal health care, UBI, and clean environmental standards. No more free market crap. No one wants that. Sounds like I agree with a lot of the positions you're espousing here, Winston. Doesn't sound like you're very conservative to me, though, based on these policies. So I'm not quite sure why you're identifying as a national conservative. If you support universal health care, UBI, and clean environmental standards, you're in the wrong, or you shouldn't be supporting conservatives if those are the policies you support.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Tulsi's plan for Medicare for all, like a 2-tiered universal healthcare system. It's not one that I personally abide by. I think that, just to give you some good pushback, Winston, if you have a 2-tiered universal healthcare, it automatically is going to be that the primary optimum healthcare is for the opulent, the people that are on the top tier of the 2-tiered universal healthcare system. I saw a tweet the other day that was going around. It was a picture of Paul McCartney sitting on the public transportation, and it was like, a developed society is not one where the poor have cars, but rather where the rich use public transportation. And so that's kind of how I view my goal for socialism. I want to have the most high tech. I want to have the most developed medical care for everyone. So I don't necessarily support a 2-tier universal healthcare, but yeah, as Gavin said, if you are looking for a national conservative politician to offer you any kind of universal healthcare, UBI, or clean environmental standards, you are barking up the wrong tree, my friend. unless you're talking about the National Conservatives as like, you know, the Democratic Party, in which case, like, it's still a fucking long haul. But I could imagine that if you're framing them as like international conservatives, people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, 100% they would fall on the conservative end of the, you know, international spectrum of politics.
Yeah, thank you so much, Winston. Really appreciate that. And if you're still watching, man, feel free to let us know exactly like what kind of politicians you do support, if that's how you identify. That's super interesting. Thank you so much for the $10. Thank you, Christopher. Again, this was from earlier in the debate. Fetterman needs to unleash a Hagrid fart and end Oz. That would have been an interesting twist in the debate for sure. Appreciate the $2.
Chemical weapons on the debate stage.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if we did, missed any other super chats from earlier. Oh shoot, Trump gonna light up Oz. I don't know about that. I think Trump, you know, he endorsed Oz. He's gonna remain solidly behind him. He wants Oz to win, so then he can say, thanks to my endorsement, you know, Dr. Oz won. But really appreciate the $6.99 regardless, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Sire BA. I saw a few of your chats during the conversation. Hadn't seen you before, so welcome to the Vanguard community. Always great to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. And thank you, Mike H, for the $5. Stroke recovery can take years. Some people never fully recover. Give him a break. He's still better than Oz across the board. When it comes to policy, 100%, he's definitely better across the board. When it comes to issues like legalizing, taxing, and regulating cannabis, for example, or union rights, for example, definitely. I mean, he was endorsed by Bernie Sanders. He endorsed Bernie Sanders. So definitely more of a Bernie-crat than your average Democrat, but still got a lot of disappointing answers from Fetterman tonight when it came to fracking, when it came to police, and of course in the past when it came to Israel. So it's tough to get
China.
And China. Yeah. So it's tough to get very excited from a progressive perspective about John Fetterman right now. Although I do totally sympathize with people that live in Pennsylvania that are still going to pull the lever for the guy. If I lived in Pennsylvania, I'd still probably vote for John Fetterman, just, you know, more with a grimace than a grin.
No, dude, 100%. It would be like plug your nose and fucking pull for it because you're gonna eat shit. Like, especially us. Like, I mean, cards on the table. This is a very unique fucking, you know, line of employment. But if I come out here and I say, yeah, I pulled the lever for John Fetterman, I just know I'm gonna fucking have to eat shit every single goddamn time he does some horse shit neoliberalism, which he undoubtedly will do. So yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised at this point. Fuck me if he just shut the fuck up and said the Senate parliamentarian wouldn't let us have a fucking $15 minimum wage. I mean, that is the kind of expectations I have for the guy after the way that he framed every single issue he supported in the debate. So I'm feeling extra skittish around John Fetterman. And I don't know, man. It just seems like he's doing the same fucking song and dance that they all fucking do, which they abandon any principles they have in order to try and get elected, and then they lose anyway.
Yep. And thank you once again, Bruce Stevens, for the $1.99. I need more drunk guard. Yeah, we need to do more of these late night live streams, honestly. Not only to more people able to tune in. Now I sound like fucking John Fetterman, Jesus Christ. Not only are more people able to tune in, but we're also able to drink in the evening times. Usually we're not, usually we do our live streams in the morning or afternoon. So we're not trying to like get drunk on live streams, but in the afternoon, might as well, right?
Yeah, dude, holy shit. We're about to be at 3,000 live viewers right now. That is unheard of for the Vanguard. Gavin and I are used to going live for like 450. So yeah, shout out to you guys. This is all base. We broke the algorithm. They haven't hidden us from you guys. Normally, Gavin and I are not allowed to have our toxic masculinity spewed across the internet, our vile leftist outlook on the live, our garbage takes as it is. But because we have liberated ourselves with a few bottles of Boulevard Wheat, the sponsor, just a humble hometown brew. Yeah, shout out to you, Bruce. Gavin and I will probably start. We always say this because every time we do a late night one, we get drunk, we have a fun time. We're like, let's do this every fucking day. We really do need to start doing these more often. Maybe twice a week is a good way of starting now, because I do like our routine of going live at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but sometimes you got to go live again in the evening and just really break it down, really hammer it out for people. So shout out to everybody that's in the new Vanguard community. Go ahead and give the show a like if you like it. Subscribe if you want to see more of it, because we do this shit every fucking day. It's a good program. Good programming, as Gavin likes to call it.
Good programming. Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're not quite done yet, so sit tight. But yeah, we are over 3,000 viewers right now, which is absolutely insane for the Vanguard. Definitely an all-time high for us, a new record broken. So shout out to you all for tuning in. Again, if you're new to the program, we do a lot of political coverage. Obviously, we're going to be doing more midterm coverage, and we're gearing up for 2024. You think this was fun? We're going to be doing these on like a freaking monthly basis come 2024 because there's going to be debates all the time, Republican and Democrat, that we can't wait to cover. It's going to be a great time. So make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell and like button so you don't miss out on that future content. But again, we're not quite done yet. Really appreciate you, Bruce. It is always fun to get a little bit drunk on the podcast. And thank you, John McKinney, for the $4.99. She-Hulk sucked. Twerking scene is just as bad as Peter dancing in Spider-Man 3. It made the cringy playground fight in Daredevil look good by comparison. Yeah, we haven't heard from you in a while, John, but I appreciate that super chat. And I know you always love to chat about comic book movies and shows and stuff like that. I have no interest in watching the She-Hulk show. It looked super cringy to me. Again, I just have no interest in watching it. It looked really, really bad. And yeah, the twerking scene particularly looked incredibly fucking cringe.
It just looks like cheap television, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I imagine I don't know how much money they put into She-Hulk, but I watched it and I was like, this seems like it's the like fake television that's on in the background when you're watching a movie, and then those characters in that movie are watching something bad, and it's supposed to be a joke about how bad the content is in this world that they've created where the fictional characters are watching said bad content. But as it stands, it's actually just hundreds of thousands of real people that actually do subject themselves to watching this. And it is a real program that seemingly employed some real creative talent to make it. But yeah, Gavin and I actually dunked all over that for our other YouTube channel where we talk mostly about pop culture and movies. And yeah, it just looks bad all across the board. No love for She-Hulk, unfortunately, from the Vanguard.
And by the way, thank you for mentioning that, Zach, because we do actually have another YouTube channel. If you guys want, you can sub to that as well. It's called Screen Fiends. The link is in the description. I recently just put it in the description, so you might have to refresh the page to get there, but I'll throw it in the chat too. We have another channel called Screen Fiends where we talk about movies and television. And since we do have 3,000 viewers right now, might as well shout that out and get some of you guys to subscribe. We're trying to build it up. So please go subscribe over there too if you enjoy hearing more about film and television and pop culture in general. It's a really good time. We have a great show over there too. So make sure to subscribe to Screen Fiends. You particularly might enjoy it. John McKinney just dropped a video about Henry Cavill and the upcoming DC project. So again, hit that up, Screen Fiends, in the description, put it in the chat as well. Really appreciate you, John. Thank you so much for the super chat. And thank you, Alex, following up on the question about weed and alcohol. I can't drink because I'm epileptic. That's why I'm passionate for pot legalization. Well, yeah, we're also passionate for pot legalization for slightly different reasons, but you know, that's a very valid reason as well. And honestly, you're not missing much. I mean, I definitely enjoy drinking alcohol every once in a while, but like if you can't drink alcohol, you might be for the better, honestly, as far as your liver, as far as your overall health, as far as just dependency issues in general. Like alcohol is a hell of a drug. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and people forget that all the time because it's legal, and you like compare it to some other drugs that are illegal, and you're like, on the scale of what's dangerous. Okay, alcohol will fucking kill you, and and also just ruin your life if you let it. So don't forget about that. And yeah, Alex, I as we said earlier, we're more cannabis over alcoholic consumption. You can't overdose on fucking cannabis no matter how much you smoke. You can drink yourself to death, honestly, a lot easier than a lot of people realize. So yeah, shout out to you for the $4.99, Alex. And yeah, hopefully you're in a state where you can have access to legal regulated quality cannabis to provide you with some treatment and ease the, I imagine, really difficult side effects and symptoms of epilepsy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate all the contributions today. And I hope you do live in a legal state, of course. And also thank you so much, Jessoir, for the $5. Dems are effed in the Midwest and Great Lakes may never rule Senate again. Urban only strategy is a bust. That's a decent point. Yeah, the Democrats really do rely on the urban areas, the big cities, to carry them. But unfortunately, that's not always enough.
Yeah. I mean, I actually don't. I don't know if I think that it's only an urban strategy that they're employing, but I do agree that if you ignore, because of the way that our electoral system is set up, you do have to give more power to the people in those rural areas than often we do. And I don't think you have to tailor your message differently that much. You just have to make sure that those people in those rural areas understand that they're included in those development plans. And I think that's a big problem that the Democratic Party needs to overcome when they're talking about, raising the minimum wage and, giving everybody access to healthcare. When you're talking to rural voters, talk about, we want to build a fucking hospital out here so you guys don't have to drive 3 hours. If you have a stroke or a heart attack, we want people to be able to have everybody have access to that same high quality care. And we're going to do that through universal healthcare system, etc. Those are the kind of ways that you unify and you say, this isn't just for the urban metropolis. This isn't just about building high-rise apartments and skyscrapers. This is about making sure everybody in America, whether I live in rural America or New York City, is taken care of, or Philadelphia, if we're talking specifically through the parameters of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the super chat, and thank you, Mike, for the $2. Give Gavin your keys, Zach. Luckily, we don't have to worry about that. We both live in the same apartment. Neither of us are driving anywhere tonight, and I'm also drunk as shit, by the way. I should not be driving anywhere tonight either, and I will not be driving anywhere.
Gavin's gonna go on the late night Taco Bell.
No, if anything, DoorDash some Taco Bell, but no, fuck that. Neither of us are driving anywhere tonight. Trust me, we're both drunk as fuck, and honestly, we needed to be for this debate because, like I said, that was pretty tough to watch.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to you, Mike H. Always great to see you in the comment section. But yeah, I mean, oh boy, this is just one. Oh, what a night. Got to watch John Fetterman go out there and make me really, really unhappy and just downright disappointed and, internally conflicted about any praise I might have given that man in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Mike. Really appreciate that, man. And someone's telling me to turn down my audio as well, so I'll quickly do that. You don't think it's that big of a deal? Let me just turn it down just a wee bit. All right, there we go. But thank you so much, Mike H. Really appreciate that, and thank you once again, BW in Wisconsin. Always appreciate you. Congrats on the 3,000-ish viewers. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Yeah, no, really appreciate that, BW. And yeah, it's absolute insanity, man. I don't even think we've ever passed like 2,000 viewers, right? Maybe we did back in the day. A couple times, potentially. Yeah, never 3,000 though. New record for us. Really, really super special. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, everyone that's new to the Vanguard. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in though.
Yeah, I think this is our most watched live stream. I know we hit like 2,500 at one point because I was like a quarter of the way to fucking 10,000. But yeah, no, we've never hit 3 before, and that was before we made the entire like fucking internet meltdown. With some of our more heterodox political takes like a year and a half ago. So yeah, shout out to BW in Wisconsin. Shout out to everybody that watches our show all the time. And an extra shout out to all those people who have stumbled across us, but decided to stick around because they thought that this was at least more amusing than whatever else they could find suggested to them in the immediate YouTube algorithm. This show is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, BW. Really appreciate that. And thank you, KVMXS, for the $4.32. Keep this drunk guard going, y'all. Much love. Thank you so much, man. And yeah, it is pretty ironic that the first time we've ever hit 3,000 live viewers, we're both like shit-faced drunk, totally impaired. But you guys seem to be enjoying it, so hell yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. I've kicked it into my bartending high gear where like now I'm working and I'm being professional, even though I've had like 4.5 beers. So it's like, yeah, sure. I can't drive a car, but I can run my mouth just fine. And shout out to you, VMXS. Yeah, we're keeping it going. Our engines are revved. We've got a few more super chats to bust out, and we'll keep taking any questions that you guys throw at us. So shout out to you, and shout out to Sam Mack for that super sticker as well. Based as fuck. 1999. Really appreciate that generous donation, Sam Mack. Yeah, crazy night tonight. You guys have been taking great care of our show. We massively, massively appreciate it. And I hope that everybody's just enjoying it. Obviously, we're doing a quick victory lap because this is insane for us. But, I really hope everybody appreciated the substance and the commentary of what we were going after tonight.
Yeah, I thought it was a great discussion. It's crazy that we're having so many more live viewers now than when we were actually watching the debate. I figured more people would be tuning in for that, but I'm glad you guys are appreciating the post-show, commentary as well, because we're having a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Sam Mack. Really appreciate the $20. That's super, super generous. Really appreciate the support. And thank you also, Comrade. I'm from Nevada. Any interest in covering the races going on here? Loving the Night Guard, by the way. Yeah, really appreciate that, man. And glad you're enjoying the nighttime show. We've definitely had a lot of fun tonight. And yeah, I'm not as plugged into the Nevada Senate race. I know that the incumbent Democratic senator is Catherine Cortez Masto, if I'm correct. I don't know as much about her opponent. So I'll have to look a little bit more into that one. But if there's a debate coming up, then we might, in fact, do a live stream covering that as well. Because like I said, had a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, that's actually going to be an interesting debate. The polling race. The polling's really close on that between Laxalt and Cortez Masto, the incumbent Cortez Masto, and then the Republican challenger. And yeah, that could go basically any way. But again, I because of the way that the fucking country is going right now, I would say that there's even a decent chance that one does go Republican as well. I haven't followed that one as closely as I followed Pennsylvania, unfortunately, Comrade, but I'll do my homework just for you. And maybe we can do a little bit more commentating on that. Now that we know people are fucking interested in listening to us talk about this, we might bust out a little bit more of the, horse race commentary for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure we didn't miss any super chats. Do you think we missed any, Zach? I saw someone saying that we missed their super chat. I don't want to miss anyone's super chat. So I'm trying to scroll back. We've gotten so many live chats tonight, guys, that I'm having to scroll through the history on our chat right now to try to make sure I didn't miss any. But really appreciate everyone for tuning in, as I said, and everyone for sending super chats. I'm trying to make sure we didn't miss any.
I've been going pretty thoroughly through all of them that I've seen, and I haven't seen us mix any. I know at one point we got slightly out of order, but as far as I can tell, we went back and hit all of those. I'm also doing the same thing that you're doing, where I'm just like trying to go back to the very beginning of the stream. I know we got our first super chat from Cat's Corner, and I can see it right here. So if we did miss anybody, that is our sincerest apology. You can let us know right now. Like, yo, this is me, and I sent a super chat, and you guys didn't get to it. We're happy to go ahead and answer that now. But yeah, I'm reading some shit in the comment about Led Zeppelin. I saw somebody talk about Whole Lotta Love, which is a great track from Led Zeppelin 2. When I was in high school, I had 5 CDs. One was Led Zeppelin 2. One was White Blood Cells by the White Stripes. The other one was Is This It by the Strokes, Violent Femmes, self-titled. And Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks. Yes, I was a walking cliche.
Yeah, like I said, I'm scrolling through, making sure we didn't miss any super chats. I don't know if I shouted you out, Greg. Thanks so much for the $5. That was from way earlier in the live stream. Again, we're probably going to hop off fairly soon. So if you want us to respond to anything else, feel free to send in a super chat right now so we can respond to it. But I'm scrolling through to make sure we didn't miss anything else. Hold tight for 1 second, guys. Bruce Stevens, they both look like clowns. I threw that one up during the debate. Thank you so much for that, Bruce. Fetterman keeps fumbling. This could go badly wrong. It did go badly wrong, unfortunately. Let's keep looking. Got to go up to the top here. The fracking bit was painful. It definitely was. Bottoms up, boys. This is brutal. Yep. Thanks for that, Will. Yeah, I don't think we missed anything else. So
yeah, call me B. It looks like you said read my super chat. It was brilliant. If you type in what it is, I'll fucking read it. I'm not seeing it. So, and yeah, as Brittany says, I was the prototypical punk kid. Gavin can attest to that. I used to think it was like, I used to go to all those like DIY, like gritty, like fucking punk shows where it's just a bunch of like white kids with shaved heads and like fucking Levi's blue jeans. I don't know. It's a fucking interesting vibe. But that was my childhood niche. Also, Eric W says pill over Sex Pistols. I actually think that's a really fair take. Fuck Johnny Rotten. He's a Trump supporting piece of shit politically, and everything the Sex Pistols wrote is politically fucking, miscalculated. But that's a fair punk take. I think people are ableist in Oz's TV polish. Oz is going to wipe the floor with Fed just on style, and it sucks. He can function with his president deficits. I mean, look, I would have 100% agreed with that full stop before I watched this debate, but I think the other like people are ableist 100%. And Oz is TV polished. In fact, the first message that I sent to Gavin when we were back here was Fetterman doesn't sound great, but for a career TV guy, Oz doesn't seem the sharpest either, just still better objectively. And I think that what Fetterman did was he took that argument and he made it impossible to make by making a bunch of dog shit statements that were clear as day, that were, his political beliefs that he was espousing that were just fucking terrible. So that kind of gets in my way of agreeing with you 100%, because I think there are a lot of non-ableist criticisms to make of Fetterman's performance. But by and large, I think that everything you're saying here, call me B, is correct.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I'm glad we found your super chat, man. And yeah, it is unfortunate that this Senate race might come down to style over substance. You're 100% correct about that. Thank you so much for the $4.99. Really appreciate that. And also thank you, S. Charles. We weren't able to shout out your super chat, but we were able to now. Hopefully you're still watching. Great discussion with Kyle the other day. Great job. Do you two ever plan on being guests for other commentators? Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the interview with Kyle Kulinski. If anyone's watching right now that hasn't checked that out, please do watch it. I thought it was a great conversation. As far as us being guests for other commentators, we're happy to be a guest on anyone's show if we're invited. So if someone else has a channel and they want to talk to us, then feel free to hit us up. We'd be more than happy to grant an interview.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of Kyle, he was, goodly enough with Crystal to have us on their show, Crystal and Kyle and friends. So, look, the thing is that Gavin and I aren't the most likable fucks. Nobody knows what we're going to say. We're really a mixed bag. You invite us on your show. It doesn't get you that many more views and you don't know what the fuck we're going to say. So I get it why other people are reticent to have the ticking time bomb that is the Vanguard boys on their show. So you got to get us here on our own fucking channel where we cannot be contained. But yeah, some people have been gracious enough to have us on their show, like Kyle and a few others as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, S. Charles. And thank you, BW in Wisconsin, once again for the $5. I came to the channel for politics. I stayed for the chit talk. The elevated blood alcohol enhances it. Ramble on. Well, thank you so much, BW. Yeah, like I said, we're both pretty fucked up right now, but definitely enjoying the conversation. Really enjoying replying to your guys' super chats and interacting with you. We always love engaging with our community, and we got a lot of new folks in here too. So enjoying seeing your guys' commentary in chat as well. But yeah, thank you so much, BW.
I really appreciate all of you guys, and shout out to everybody that's just been existing in the chat feed along next to us. We have had a fucking active chat community going on, and honestly, very heterodox. Not everybody here is just a leftist like me and Gavin. There are people that are in here passionately making their case across the board. A lot of good discussion, a lot of nuance. I hope we can hold on to that. So yeah, just really great to see it. Love seeing everybody have discussions, have in-depth disagreements, and still stay mostly respectful, which is our goal here. Not 100% respectful. That nobody asks for that. Just like 65%.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, BW. And thank you once again, KVMXS, for the $2. I wish I wasn't saying RIP Fetterman. It's really a shame, man. It really is a shame. Before the stroke, I was convinced that he was, one of the rising stars in the Democratic Party, that he could even potentially run for president, despite my disagreements with the guy. I thought he was real talent. And unfortunately, it is fair to say that the stroke has set him back some ways. Even though he's still better on policy than maybe your average Democrat, it seems like a lot of his policy positions have been pretty watered down too. And he just kind of sounds like a corporate Democrat now, which is a real shame. Again, given the populist vibes that he was giving off earlier in the campaign and as lieutenant governor. So yeah, it's definitely a shame, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I also arrived at that same conclusion. I think that his chances of winning are not 100% goose egg, but like really close.
Yeah, I would say it's about a 60-40 in favor of Oz now, as I said earlier. But yeah, thanks so much for the super
I'll
chats,
give him
man.
5% chance of victory.
5%. Come on.
Oh yeah, dude. And I will be playing this clip when the fucking election day comes around, because I think he's gonna get fucking raked over the coals for this debate performance. Because as charitable as you want to be to him, and as kind of a man as you are, Gavin, and as anti-ableist as you're trying to be, it was a fucking miserable, pathetic fucking performance. I'm sorry. He shouted out the police and the cops. He shouted out how he wants to be fucking anti-China. He shouted out how he fucking is pro-fracking and has always been pro-fracking. I'm sorry, but this is for the birds. He's fucked.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see, man. But thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you also, Mike H, for the $2. I'm still mad about the Chiefs 49ers. Mahomes too good. Yeah, that must suck, bro.
Yeah, I remember you talking some shit about that the other day, Mike H, and I was like, oh yeah, Chiefs haven't been playing so good. Guess what? I said, people were asking me about my analysis with what's going on with the Chiefs. I said, our wideout situation is fucked. Okay, we've got McCole Hardman out here playing his best, and we've got Travis Kelce out here playing his best. But we need Juju Smith-Schuster and a few other guys to start pulling their own weight over here, right? So much so that it became rumored that they were restructuring Travis Kelce's contract to free up an extra like $3.5 million so that they could sign Odell Beckham Jr., just so that they could have somebody to get double teamed out there that could still fucking go. Patrick Mahomes can throw the ball to. But what happened, Mike? You watched the game. I think you said you went to it. What happened? Our wideouts went dumb crazy. McCole Hardman had, I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns and a fucking receiving touchdown. I mean, off the fucking charts, dude. We were playing crazy. Juju Smith-Schuster had some great grabs. We were really moving the ball around, getting our offense in motion. And what happened? We won 44-23 because we put numbers on the fucking board. That's the Chiefs I like to see. That's the team that we know over here, and it's based. And I also saw this amazing ass clip. It was like for everybody calling the Chiefs fair weather fans or whatever. It was a video clip from the 90s when we actually got a penalty as a stadium where they started penalizing the crowd for being too fucking loud in the 90s when we were still just like a dog shit nobody Midwest NFL team. Kansas City Chiefs fan run deep, and that's why I want them desperately to change their name so I can start buying merch.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Thank you so much, Mike, though. Really appreciate the $2 as always. And thank you also, Bruce Stevens, for the $1.99. Fetterman and Nina both got by the dim machine. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough to survive in the Democratic Party machine as an actual progressive. Nina Turner proved that. They attacked her, they slandered her, and she ended up losing miserably. That's unfortunate. And unfortunately, the same fate might befall John Fetterman, although he never was quite as progressive as Nina Turner. But still, it's a shame given the fact that he really did stick his neck out on certain issues and really embrace progressive politics in certain areas where other Democrats are afraid to tread. And he was genuinely a more populist, progressive Bernie-crat kind of voice for a while. Unfortunately, it does seem like a lot of that's been kind of watered down, and he's retreated from some of those positions, which was especially apparent in tonight's debate, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. I mean, he got swallowed up by the meat grinder already. And all that it took was a bunch of backlash from people who were never in his corner to begin with. And that's what fucks with me. Same with Nina Turner, right? The swamp will consume you even before you fucking arrive in these people's instances. And so that's just massively frustrating. They're all cucked to the establishment because they're so desperate to get there from the door. And you only want a firm rejection of all that. That's how you know you can trust somebody. AFC used to say that she was happy to be a one-term congressman, and then she gets invited to the Met Gala, and she's been on Vogue a few times, and now she just wants to talk to Pod Save America Bros about the best French fries in California. So I think that that's exactly what would have happened to Fetterman and Nina. But I don't think they'll be so fortunate as to get to Washington and become members of the aristocracy.
Absolutely. And we are at 4,000 viewers. Oh, now we fell back down to 39. Whatever. We were briefly over 4,000 viewers. So that's an all-time record for the Vanguard. Holy shit. That's crazy. Even though we dropped below that once again. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new. And thank you also, Scott, for the $5. Do you guys think Oz has presidential prospects? Plus, congrats on the almost 4K. Well, thank you so much, Scott. It's possible. It's possible if he wins the Senate race. Definitely would not rule it out. It's not really something I've considered, but it's definitely a possibility. And you take a guy like Dr. Oz, who's a TV personality, obviously a total narcissist. Can't put it past the guy. Can't put it past the guy. Once they get a taste of power, they want more. And usually when people win Senate races, they start to think about that kind of thing. So it's definitely possible, Scott. Thanks for bringing that up because it's an interesting idea, and I definitely wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I if he does go for it, and again, I wouldn't put it past him either, right? He's a career narcissist, just like all these other fuckers that run for office. But I don't think it would be as successful if him. He barely made it through the Republican primary, guys. He's just in a Republican primary. I think he gets swallowed up by a guy like Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis. I think he just floats around. He's just not interesting enough. He's too milquetoast. He's too blasé. He's too audience tested. You know what I mean? He doesn't have anything that's like sharp and memorable about him. He's not
a populist at all.
No, he's an elitist with 10 houses, and he's the kind of politician that could have maybe gotten shoved down our throats in 2005. But the year's 2022 now, and I just don't think it's time for a guy like Mehmet.
And it's not even the wealth, because Donald Trump was extremely wealthy himself. He probably has a bunch of houses too.
Well,
but Trump actually embraced some populist policies. I mean, he didn't follow through on them, unfortunately. But he was anti-outsourcing. He really embraced some populist.
Well, rhetorically,
ideas.
he was anti-out.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He ran on those policies. Like I said, he didn't go through on them. But Dr. Oz doesn't really have that strain. He doesn't seem to have that kind of populist tendency. He doesn't really seem to be as tapped into the middle America working man vibe that Trump was able to channel, at least in his 2016 run. So we'll see. He might run for president just due to an inflated ego if he wins the Senate race. I don't think he would probably be successful, but definitely can't rule it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not to be speaking in broad declarations, but I think it's almost impossible that this man ever makes it higher than the Senate. That would just be my broad analysis. I can't imagine a world where he gets through a Republican primary in the presidential election, but I can definitely see a world where he decides that it's a good idea. But I mean, even then, in this race, he still kissed the ring. He still 100% bowed to Trump at every single opportunity, even when the moderators kind of gave him an out. He was like, I will support the president. I will blah, blah, blah. Oh, all right. I'll support Donald Trump. No, I'm not concerned about his fucking countless lawsuits that are fucking piling up against him. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Scott. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Kelly, also for the 499. 4K viewers, football analysis, and post-debate talks. This def needs to be a recurring thing. Absolutely, man. We're having a great time. It's truly surreal to be at over 4,000 viewers, all-time high for the Vanguard. And yeah, just having an awesome time drinking some beers, chatting with you guys. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in and contributing to the chat today.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Kelly. Always love seeing you in the chat. And yeah, I was surprised. I thought everybody was going to click off the second I started rambling about my beloved hometown football team.
Nope. The sports guard is here to stay. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you also, KXMXS, for the $4. All-time high, baby. Hell yeah, bro. Yeah, this is absolute insanity.
Yep, and as Charlie Alicia points out, everybody, Dark Brandon, the CIA, and Big Tech are all conspiring to get out their propaganda via the MSNBC guard. That is the only reason we are succeeding is because of the deep state effort to shove us down your throats. We are the 1% guard.
Yep, absolutely. Shout out to you, Charlie, for hate watching. And thank you so much, Mike H, for the $2. Any idea why most fellow leftists hate sports? I don't necessarily think they hate sports. I just think that a lot of lefties are very serious people, or they consider themselves very serious people, and they don't really want to get bogged down in that, in the same way that some lefties don't really want to talk about movies or television as much as Zach and I do. But we like to connect with people on that level, and we like to kind of channel those more populist interests and talk about sports or movies or television stuff, in addition to talking about politics, because those are the things that we're interested in too. We're normal people. We have an interest in politics. We're passionate about our leftist political goals and ideas, but at the same time, we're normal people, and when the show's over, we go and engage in our other interests, whether that be watching a Chiefs game or watching some movies, and that's the stuff we like to talk about too. So we're really proud to have fostered a community of people that also like to talk about that stuff, and aren't don't have this elitist attitude about those kind of subject matters. So we really appreciate the fact that you guys enjoy hearing us chat about those subjects as well.
Yeah, see, most leftists have this primal, fucking inescapable need to be terrible. They want everybody to fucking hate them. They want to have nothing fun to talk about. And you bring up something like sports, and they'll be like, yeah, Noam Chomsky put it best when he said that's just irrational training and jingoism. Why can't we get a stadium full of people demanding healthcare and an end to imperialism? And it's like, that's not going to fucking happen. Would you shut the fuck up? Okay. Would you stop making us even more unlikable to every single person that's ever fucking consumed political messaging than we already are, right? People hate leftists, but they love our policy. And most fellow leftists have dedicated their whole lives to just validating all of those hatreds and suspicions of leftists who just want to rain on people's parade. I hate Marvel movies. I think there's basically zero enjoyment for me to get out of them. But even I want to run over the people with my car who are like, this is just fucking jingoism and imperialist fucking propaganda. I'm like, yeah, dude, shut the fuck up. It's a horrible life most people are living. They can barely fucking escape the constant anxieties and stresses of trying to get through the day. Let them have some fucking fun. And that's where my position is.
Yeah, absolutely. And literally no one likes leftist politics. What do you not? You don't want healthcare? You don't want legal weed? What the fuck? You just want to die without having any access to healthcare? That sounds great.
Yeah, sorry, Thunderberg, but actually even Fox News polling will say that your homies over there on the right, they want shit like Medicare for all. They want shit like fucking raising the minimum wage. That's why Florida, deep red state, voted for the $15 minimum wage, baby. Chickens are coming home to roost, Thunderberg. Let's go. Hate in the chat while we lift off.
Well, I do think that just about does it for super chats. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Zach? While we have 4,000 eyes on us.
Yeah, dude, fucking insane. Shout out to everybody. If you're listening to this for the first time, this is our pitch to you. Obviously, Gavin and I are leftists. That's our fucking deal. As we move the show forward, we're going to be breaking down a lot of textbook American politics, right? And look, we don't like any of these fuckers, right? You just heard us criticize John Fetterman for an hour and a half, way more than we talked about Dr. Oz. We're interested in shit that's going to impact the American people, and we're nonpartisan. Okay, our politics don't exist in the framework of American political discussion, so we can come in here and hold people's feet to the fire and say, hey, fuck you, this is not what you actually said, this is what I believe, and that's not on the table. So you guys will know what I believe. You'll know that it's not any of this shit. And even if you don't believe in it, if you don't want Medicare for all, if you for some fucking reason, I will continue to fucking try and convince you every single fucking day you listen to this show. But you're getting an honest analysis over here. I don't have a dog in this fight. Fuck John Fetterman. Fuck Mehmet Oz. They're both going to lead us astray. But you're going to get our honest play-by-play analysis of what's happening in Washington. Stop feeding me alcohol. I actually need to smoke a joint, need some food for the day. But yeah, this is what our show is. Me and Gavin, we sit here, we break down the news. We're not coastal bros. We grew up in Kansas City. This is who the fuck we are. And I think that we have a great show. So stick around and hit that subscribe.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button, everyone. And thank you so much, Nasser, for the $1.99. Congrats on the 4K live recovering Hinkle subscriber. Well, we appreciate admitting the errors of your ways and coming back over to the Vanguard, Nasser. Yeah, that guy's a total fraud. We called that from the beginning, but anyone that got duped by him, we don't judge you. Everyone's susceptible to propaganda. And yeah, that guy's a total fraud. But I'm glad that you're over here now and that you're, in fact, recovering from that charlatan. But thank you so much for the super chat, Nasser.
Yeah, Hinkle. That's not. I think it was. I think it might have been a typo. I think you meant Stinkle over here. That fucker. But yeah, shout out to you. I know typing's appreciate you coming around now.
Yeah, Haxon Stinkle. Yeah, I don't know who. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thank you so much for the $1.99. And yeah, anything else we want to talk about? There is one. Let's talk about this one story before we get out of here, because I did want to break this down. I was planning on talking about this earlier on the show today, but since we're here talking a little bit about electoralism, might as well talk about this. For months, Trump has apparently repeatedly discussed choosing Marjorie Taylor Greene as his 2024 running mate. This definitely caught me by surprise for a couple of reasons, and I saw this reported in a couple of outlets. So let's quickly talk about it before we get out of here today. Again, we do have quite a big audience. It would be a shame to let that go to waste. So let's quickly break down this story. Donald Trump has repeatedly discussed choosing Marjorie Taylor Greene as his running mate, a journalist says. He's been discussing it since February, New York Times Magazine reporter Robert Draper told the Daily Beast. Trump is considering Greene because of her unflagging loyalty to him, Draper said. That definitely checks out. Trump obviously values loyalty above all else. Former President Donald Trump has repeatedly discussed choosing Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene as his 2024 running mate, the New York Times Magazine journalist Robert Draper told the Daily Beast. Speaking on this week's episode of the Daily Beast, the new Abnormal podcast, Draper claimed the discussions have been ongoing for months. Draper, the author of Weapons of Mass Delusion, When the Republican Party Lost Its Mind, told the podcast that Trump has toyed with the idea of selecting Greene to join his ticket since February of this year. It's been discussed repeatedly, he told the Daily Beast. Now, to be fair, I mean, how many of these conversations has Trump had with other people? Draper said that Greene is being considered by Trump because she has been unflaggingly loyal to him throughout. What is Trump concerned with most of all in a VP after the Mike Pence experience? Loyalty, he added. Trump has previously said he wouldn't pick former Vice President Mike Pence as his running mate again because he committed political suicide when he refused to intervene in the election certification process. The former president needs someone who will fight for him to overturn a presidential election, and Marjorie Taylor Greene would definitely fit that bill. Now, the first thing I thought of when I saw this article was that Tulsi Gabbard must be crying somewhere because, of course, she's been hardcore angling for that position and desperately wants to be Donald Trump's vice president. I'm thoroughly convinced that's the whole reason why she's out here endorsing the entire cadre of the fucking rogues gallery cavalry of Trump Republicans. But here's this story saying that Trump is apparently repeatedly discussed choosing Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the most prominent and odious America First Republicans out there, for his running mate. What do you think about this, Zach? Do you think that's a possibility?
It's funny because we hadn't talked about this at all, but it makes perfect sense, right? It actually reminds me of that scene from The Office where Dwight is like, I'm going wherever they value loyalty the most. And it's just like, LOL. Of course, Donald Trump is most concerned about loyalty because he doesn't know what the fuck kind of crazy delusional nonsense he's going to do. And he needs a foot soldier that's going to follow him blindly. And he thought that guy was going to be Mike Pence, the guy that would do fucking anything just to be the VP. And even Vice President Mike Pence came to his reach end. And you know what? Donald Trump led a bunch of his fucking followers to chant like, hang Pence and all kinds of fucking horrible shit. So clearly that ship has sailed with Mike Pence. Mike Pence might even have his own presidential ambitions in 2024, though that would be a disaster. So yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, unfortunately, for him to take somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, because here's something that maybe wouldn't be beneficial for him in the general election, but I think if he did come out during the Republican primary and say that he was going to make Marjorie Taylor Greene his running mate, that it would just be such red meat, like orgasm for his deranged fucking MAGA crowd, that he would absolutely get 25 to 28, maybe even 30% of the Republican primary voters out in full swing, passionate fucking rallies, like, wow, because say what you will about Marjorie Taylor Greene, I have nothing but derision and contempt for her, but she has a passionate fucking following, and so does Donald Trump. So I think that would make him a shoo-in for the Republican primary, which I think he already is. I don't think that Ron DeSantis has much for him in the terms of a primary, even though Ron DeSantis would be popular. I just don't think he's as popular as Donald Trump with the Republican electorate. So that would be my initial thoughts, but then I would also say on the other side of that, making it way easier to catapult him through the Republican primary, which I'd already concede he would win with just about anybody or no VP announced, then it would become a detriment to him in the general, because I don't see many normal swing voters coming out because they see Marjorie Taylor Greene as his VP, and I think that actually could contribute to him even losing to Biden the second time.
Yeah, here's the thing. I actually don't think that Trump will pick Marjorie Taylor Greene. I agree with a lot of what you said, but I do not think that Trump will pick Marjorie Taylor Greene as his 2024 running mate. And here's the reason why. Trump needs all the attention on him. Part of the reason why he picked Mike Pence in 2020, because Mike Pence is a boring ass motherfucker. He knew that Mike Pence would appeal to the evangelical vote, but Trump wants all the attention on himself. What's Marjorie Taylor Greene going to do? Steal the attention away from Donald Trump. Few people are as insane and just fucking odious of human beings as far as policy and personality as Donald Trump, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of those people that actually competes with him on those levels. And the media is going to have an absolute heyday going through everything she's ever said, talking about how she once talked about Jewish space lasers and all this crazy stuff that she believes in. They would have an absolute heyday, picking through her past and taking every comment and blowing it up and, basically freaking out over it, much like they did with Trump in 2016. So one, Trump needs to be the center of attention, and Marjorie Taylor Greene would steal enough of that attention away from him to make it impalatable for him, in my opinion. Second of all, let's look what happened to John McCain in 2008. He picked Sarah Palin. Again, also took all the attention away from him because she was so fucking stupid that she refocused that conversation of that election on herself, her stupidity, her inability to answer questions in an intelligent, thoughtful manner. And again, kind of just made it a referendum on Sarah Palin. Donald Trump doesn't want that to happen, and I think Marjorie Taylor Greene might, in fact, have that effect. Third of all, he needs a vice president that is going to appeal to other demographics. That's not just the MAGA base, the Trump base, the people that are likely to vote for Donald Trump. He needs someone that's going to appeal to a slightly different demographic, someone like Tulsi Gabbard, as I said. Marjorie Taylor Greene, yes, she has a passionate following, as you said, Zach, but that passionate following is basically Donald Trump's passionate following. No one that likes Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't like Donald Trump, and vice versa. They have the same pool of voters. The diagram that connects them is basically just one circle. So I don't think he's going to pick her because she just doesn't appeal to the kind of voters that he needs to appeal to in order to win the presidency. I imagine he'll pick someone who has a little bit more like a centristy cred, someone like Tulsi Gabbard, which is why she's angling so hard for the job. But that being said, we can't rule out entirely, as Trump does value loyalty and sycophancy above all else, and that could very likely get her the job as well.
Yeah, and I heed your point that she takes a lot of attention away from him, which is why I wouldn't be surprised if he threw a curveball at us and picked somebody like if Sarah Huckabee Sanders became governor of Arkansas. I could imagine him being like, "Oh, she's a great spokesperson for me. She was his White House press secretary for a while. I think she was the longest serving of any of the White House press secretaries. She was the one that I'm pretty sure was responsible for the alternative fact thing that went down. She just knows how to spin the president or the former president Trump's fucking words in any way possible. So I think that potentially that, but I also agree that he's going to have to find a new religious nut job to swing over the evangelical note. I saw somebody bringing that up in the chat, and that's 100% true. Now that was why he picked Mike Pence, was because he needed the evangelical vote to carry the South and the Midwest, and that was what he accomplished with Mike Pence. So I really don't know where he'll go. I think the idea of Tulsi, I'm a little like more skittish on that. I don't think that'll maybe I'm not. I think that's less likely to happen than maybe other scenarios. Though I won't rule it out completely. Donald Trump does love to have a fucking spectacle, and that would definitely make headlines. But yeah, it's really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think Gabbard's definitely a likely pick. I think he's definitely going to pick a woman. And by the way, it was Kellyanne Conway that said the thing about alternative facts. Yeah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, maybe in contention. We'll have to see. Either way, really appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. That's probably it for today's live stream. Thank you so much, Brian, also for the $1.99. Dr. Oz for VP. I doubt it. It's always possible, though. You can't rule out anything if he wins that Senate race. Like I said, it's definitely possible that he's going to, experience power and he's going to want more. So he might try to, get involved in the 2024 ticket or maybe run in 2028, something like that. Who knows? Really appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for chiming in as always. And yeah, this was an awesome live stream. We're probably going to get out of here for tonight. It's almost 10 p.m. our time. We're both drunk as fuck and need to go smoke a bowl, but really appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Thank you so much for the super chats tonight. Thanks everyone for chatting in general. Thanks for the, congrats on the 4K viewers. That was truly surreal. We're down to like 3.7 now, but still pretty insane. And yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in.
Yeah, and just to follow up with Brian really quickly, I think the one thing that it comes back to with Dr. Oz and what it'll come down to with any VP pick is that Dr. Oz doesn't, Dr. Oz doesn't deliver very many people that aren't already with Donald Trump. Like, I just don't think I don't think he has that much charisma. I think that he held on through the Republican primary specifically because, in large part, due to his endorsement by Donald Trump, he barely won that fucking thing. I don't know. I don't see why Donald Trump would ever pick him for VP. Donald Trump seemed very over him when he wasn't performing very well in the polling. He was pissed off that all of the people that he'd endorsed were poised to lose, and a lot of them did lose the primaries. So I don't know if that'll end up happening. But that being said, I don't think any of us fucking know. If it ends up being Tulsi Gabbard, I'll give my hat off to Gavin because he's called that for like fucking months and months and months. And if that does come to fruition, then I will be like, wow, the prognostication guard, and I'll start taking equal credit for it. But until then, yeah, I don't know.
Who do you think he would pick if not her? I just don't really. I can't. I mean, maybe Tim Scott or something, but I think he's going to pick a woman. So I feel like Tulsi she's angling for the job. She clearly wants the job. She has the military experience. She's from Hawaii, which is a blue state. Trump could benefit from potentially picking that up. She has that cross-partisan appeal because she used to be a Democrat. Seems kind of like the shoe-in for the job.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I just don't think he picks her. I think that he looks at the fact that she got like 2% in the fucking Democratic primary and that she was basically a laughing stock in that presidential race, and the fact that she's done a 180 on all of her fucking political views over the past year just to like suck people off on Fox News. Like, maybe that's enough for Donald Trump, but I also think that he might have some advisors behind him that are like, hey, you might want to pick somebody with an actual standing in a community, like he did with Mike Pence, because Mike Pence was not the most talked about candidate. He was not the most like well-known politician outside of the evangelical Indiana fucking world, but he knew he was going to deliver that evangelical vote. Honestly, I think Donald Trump needs that again. I think if he runs for president, he needs that fucking evangelical vote.
Well, why do you think Tulsi's been talking so much about Christian values?
Well, obviously she's angling for it. I'm not arguing with you that that's what she wants. If you're asking me, does Tulsi want to be Donald Trump's vice president? The answer is 100% yes, but that list gets a lot longer if we're talking about who wants to be vice president versus who I think is actually going to. So fuck if I know. Trump's she's a loser, wrong, failure,
wrong.
Yeah. But anyway, I think this is a good place to wrap it all up because I don't know. I'm just saying words at this point.
Yeah, we're both super wasted. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in, though. Make sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'm going to throw it in the chat one more time. Hit up our other channel. Subscribe to Screen Fiends, where we talk about movies, television, and pop culture. If you enjoy our commentary and also like movies, television, and pop culture, as most people do, come on, guys, go hit that up. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel. I put it in the chat. You can hit the link in the chat. It's also in the fucking description. So hit that up, everyone. And also a huge shout out to the patron community. If you guys enjoy our show, delusional drunk guard, lol. But yeah, if you guys enjoy our show, if you enjoy our commentary and perspective, then please do consider hitting us up on Patreon. Would really appreciate the support over there. It's what keeps this show afloat. It's what makes this show possible, quite frankly. And I'm pulling up the patron board right now because we do like to shout out our patrons at the beginning and end of every live stream. So if, like I said, if you enjoy the show, if you want to see more, if you want to make sure that we can keep doing live streams and keep making documentary content, more of which is coming soon, then hit up that link in the description. It's a great way to support the show, and you can get your name on the shout out screen, which, as I said, we put up on screen at the beginning and end of every live stream. And we are going to be doing more of these live streams at night. I promise, Blaine. I'm super wasted right now, and I'm losing control of my vocal abilities. But anyway, hit up that live stream or hit up that link in the description, patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. We're going to get out of here, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much to the patrons. Really appreciate everyone for being a part of our community. Thank you so much, and we'll see you probably tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. And if you're watching, hit that fucking subscribe button just so I can see our shit turn from 26 to 27K subscribers tonight. We're working our way back slowly but surely. Peace out to everybody. Much love to everybody in the chat. It was great following you guys along. Love the discussion. Love the discourse. And yeah, like Gavin said, we'll be back. And fucking shout out to everybody who this was your first time hearing from us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Everyone have a great rest of your night. We'll see you around.